So Fungbin woke up one day in this completely different world. The place looked pretty much like home though. Same tech level, same kind of culture, all that stuff. But the one thing that blew his mind was how insane their VR technology was. Like way beyond anything he'd seen before. He figured with tech that good, the games must be incredible. Turns out, not really. Most of them were pretty trash actually. While he was sitting there disappointed, this voice just popped into his head out of nowhere, saying some game creation assistant thing just activated. That's when it hit him. He could remake all those classic games he loved as VR versions here. People would lose their minds over it. He started asking questions about how this whole system worked, and apparently it ran on something called surprise value. Basically, whenever he made people feel intense emotions, fear, joy, whatever, the system would collect that energy. Fing Bin decided to test it out small first. He landed on this horror game called Silent Hill Demo. Short game, but the atmosphere was legendary. He knew it would make players scream their heads off, which was exactly what he needed. The system dumped this massive guide into his brain the second he committed to it. After sitting with all that new knowledge for a bit, he fired up his computer and got to work. First problem was finding the right game engine, but everything available sucked. The graphics looked decent enough for VR, but nothing felt real. Physics were wonky, interactions felt fake. The whole thing was outdated compared to how advanced their VR tech was. No wonder nobody had made anything good yet. Lucky for him, the system hooked him up with this custom engine. He called it Heart of Illusion. With the right tools finally in hand, he dove into the actual programming. All that knowledge the system gave him just started flowing out. He parked himself at his desk and went into this zone where his fingers were just flying across the keyboard, code pouring out like water. The guy barely moved for almost a week straight. Day and night just blurred together. He'd forget to eat half the time, completely locked in on finishing Silent Hill PT. When he finally typed that last line of code and everything worked, he almost jumped out of his chair. All that exhaustion just vanished. The whole project came out to about 50 GB. Fungbin leaned back and stretched, realizing how brutal it was doing everything solo. Just the demo took him that long. He figured he'd probably need help for future projects, assuming he could farm enough emotional energy to pay for it. But right now, the game was done and ready to go. Thing is, he didn't want to just upload it and hope people found it. He needed buzz. That's when his sister Susu knocked on his door. She was this popular streamer with a pretty face and sharp features, but her voice was super deep and rough. Her fans called her stuff like Voice Destroyer and joked she carried a loudspeaker on her back. The second he saw her, Fungbin knew exactly how to promote his game. Getting his sister to stream it was perfect. Susu had been worried about him lately since he'd been locked in his room for days, living off greasy takeout and staring at his screen nonstop. She thought maybe he'd lost it or was hiding something. When Fungbin told her he had this amazing game that would blow up her channel, she wasn't buying it. She rolled her eyes and said the only way she'd get more popular was if he got on camera with her to attract female fans with their looks. He shot that down immediately. No way was he becoming some pretty boy streamer. He promised her the game would skyrocket her viewership, and if it didn't, he'd do all the housework. Susu gave him this skeptical look, but agreed to check it out. Fungbin grabbed the hard drive and followed her to her room. She asked if he was trying to prank her or something. He kept it simple. Just said it was a regular game, except pretty scary. People with weak hearts shouldn't play it. Susu scoffed at that, acting all tough about how nothing could scare her. He tried warning her again that it was seriously frightening, but she cut him off, insisting it was just a game. After installing it, Fungbin patted her shoulder and told her to quit anytime if it got too intense, then left the room. Susu noticed he looked at her with something like pity, which seemed weird for just a game. But whatever. She was more interested in whether it would actually bring in viewers like he promised. 7 o'clock rolled around and Susu started her stream on Douyu, right on schedule. Her chat filled up quick with the usual crowd. People were joking about muting her stream because of her voice, the standard stuff she was used to. She told everyone they were skipping League tonight to try this horror game her brother recommended. She strapped on the full VR setup, treadmill, helmet, motion suit, everything. Chat wasn't impressed. Horror games were pretty much garbage these days, just cheap scares and creepy music. League and CS dominated the charts because everything else was weak. People were already saying her brother probably pranked her with some half-finished mess. Susu felt a little nervous reading the comments, but started the game anyway. Her screen went black and this warning popped up about minors needing supervision, and people with heart problems or who scare easily shouldn't play. Then, the title appeared in this wavy text. Silent Hill Demo. Chat was clowning on the warning, saying it was trying too hard. Since it was just a demo, it probably wasn't even finished or scary. People told her to play something else instead. But then the scene loaded and everyone's tune changed real quick. Susu found herself standing in this small room. The lighting was dim and yellow, giving everything this creepy vibe. The room was completely empty, except for a closed wooden door and some cockroaches crawling on the floor. She couldn't get over how realistic everything looked, like she was actually standing in a real room. She spotted the cockroaches and decided to step on one. It made this gross squishing sound and the others scattered. Su freaked out because she could actually feel the texture under her foot. The realism was insane. Chat exploded with comments about how incredible the graphics were, how real everything looked, how the interactive stuff was next level. People were telling her to stomp more cockroaches so they could see. She got caught up chasing them around the room, totally absorbed. Then she heard this creaking sound. The wooden door that had been shut was now half open. She had no idea when it happened. Chat started saying they saw something flash through the doorway, some kind of shadow that moved too fast to make out. That's when it hit Su that this wasn't just some regular game. She'd been so distracted by the bugs that she missed the door opening. The graphics and interactivity were way beyond anything she expected, but this was a horror game after all. She immediately wanted to bail. Chat wasn't having it though. They were hyping her up, telling her not to hesitate, saying the game was awesome and she had to keep going. People were throwing gifts at her stream, begging her to continue. Susu's face went pale, but her fans were going absolutely crazy with excitement, completely drowning out her fear. The live stream suddenly exploded with donations, and the notification sounds kept going off like crazy. Virtual rockets and airplanes started flying across the screen one after another, and the whole thing looked pretty wild. Su saw all those gifts coming in and figured she couldn't back out now. So she psyched herself up and started moving toward the wooden door that was sitting there half open. Her heart was racing like mad. But she kept going anyway since everyone was watching and cheering her on. Right when her hand touched the door, she completely lost it and screamed at the top of her lungs, then kicked whatever was in front of her without even thinking. The whole door just crashed down with this loud bang, and dust went everywhere. People in the chat started roasting her immediately, saying stuff like how she was way scarier than any ghost could ever be, and how she nearly gave everyone a heart attack with that scream. Past the doorway was this super narrow hallway that looked normal enough with white walls and some paintings, but the lighting was dim and yellow, and the whole vibe felt off. The passage was so tight only one person could squeeze through at a time, and everything just felt suffocating and cold. Su muttered something about how terrifying the place was, even though nothing had actually happened yet. The atmosphere alone was enough to freak her out, and everyone watching felt the same way because the whole setup looked insanely realistic. She kept walking and spotted a clock on the wall showing 11:59 with the second hand completely frozen. People in the chat started joking about how it was prime ghost hours, which definitely didn't help her nerves. Then this weird hissing sound came from up ahead and Su freaked out again, but it turned out to be just an old radio tucked into a little alcove in the wall. The radio was playing this emergency news report about some guy who murdered his wife and kids in their house 3 days ago. The report went into detail about how he shot his pregnant wife, then tricked his 6-year-old daughter into opening the bathroom door by telling her it was a game before killing her too. When the cops showed up, they found him just sitting in the hallway listening to the radio like nothing happened. The chat went absolutely nuts, talking about how this had to be the same house and how messed up the whole story was. Su was already on edge, but another donation notification came through and somehow that gave her enough courage to keep going. When she turned the corner, she froze completely. The entire wall ahead was covered in blood, with stains everywhere on the floor and nearby furniture. Everyone immediately started saying it had to be the crime scene where the guy shot his wife, and someone mentioned that first shadow they'd seen through the door crack earlier. So everyone's thinking the same thing. Maybe it's the murdered landlady's ghost or something. And even Su's getting those chills running down her spine. She yells at them to shut up because all this talk is making her even more freaked out. And honestly, she's hoping this whole thing is just some messed up game because that would be way less scary than the alternative. She pushes past her fear and carefully steps around the blood to get closer to this cabinet. And there's this group photo sitting on the table with 3 people in it, but blood's covering 2 of the faces on the left side. The only clear face is this guy on the right who looks absolutely miserable, probably the killer himself, and his eyes have this really weird look to them that makes Su feel like he's staring right at her through the photo. She can't tell if she's just imagining it or if the game designers did that on purpose, but either way she looks away from that creepy photo pretty quick and keeps moving forward until she spots this door with frosted glass that's obviously a bathroom with a dry floor mat sitting in front of it. Her followers start pushing her to open it and check what's inside, which just stresses her out more because she remembers all the horrible stuff that happened to kids in this area and figures it's probably another crime scene. Someone sends her a gift to encourage her, so she takes this deep breath, grabs the handle and turns it while everyone holds their breath. But then they hear this rattling sound and realize the door's locked tight. She lets out this huge sigh of relief because, thank God, the bathroom's sealed off and they don't have to deal with whatever nightmare is behind that door. And everyone watching feels that same weight lift off their chest. Susu says they should keep moving, her voice shaking but determined, and she carefully walks down this dark hallway, taking these tiny steps like she's afraid of waking something up. After walking for what feels like forever, she finally sees this wooden door up ahead that looks pretty normal but somehow familiar, and she's thinking maybe this is finally the exit, so she gets excited and rushes over to push it open. But when the door swings open, she just stands there speechless because they're right back at that same dim, narrow corridor they started in. Like they've gone in a complete circle. Everyone's freaking out in the chat saying the game's designed as a closed loop with puzzle elements mixed in with all the horror. And while they're impressed, Susu's just confused until this loud bang behind her makes her jump as the wooden door slams shut by itself. She complains about the ridiculous infinite loop, but has no choice except to go back into the corridor that terrifies her. And she tries playing it cool by saying she's familiar with the place now, so it's no big deal. She walks past the corner and the bloodstains and gets back to the secret room. And that's when the audience starts telling her she needs to try opening that door again because the key to solving everything is probably in there, or she'll be stuck in this loop forever. Susu knows they're probably right, but just thinking about that secret room makes her skin crawl. So she sighs and forces herself to walk over there, reaching for the doorknob to turn it. Then suddenly there's this rapid heavy banging coming from behind the door like someone's pounding on it from the inside, hitting it so hard the doorknob's shaking in her hand. Susu screamed like she'd just been hit by lightning and stumbled backward. The comment section went absolutely crazy because that sudden knock freaked everyone out. Even though it was just 3 knocks, she was already way too scared to go near that door again. She turned around and bolted toward the hall entrance, trying to twist the doorknob, but the door wouldn't budge at all. She kept yanking on it, getting more desperate by the second, wondering if she was actually trapped here and had no choice but to check out that secret room. Right when she was losing it, she heard something behind her in the empty hallway. Her eyes went wide, and she slowly turned around, totally panicking when she saw the secret room door was now cracked open. The chat was going nuts. Everyone knew what that opening door meant, and after those knocks, they could pretty much guess what was coming next. The whole vibe of this game was insane. Like even without seeing anything scary yet, the atmosphere alone was enough to mess with everyone's head. People started spamming the chat, telling her to just go check it out already, since there was no other way out anyway. Susu complained that they all just wanted to see her die. But honestly, she was terrified. Her back was completely drenched in cold sweat, her shirt sticking to her skin, and she felt cold right down to her bones. When she first accepted the invitation to try this game, she thought it'd be some basic horror game with cheap jump scares and loud noises. But she was completely wrong. This immersive horror was way beyond what she expected, and she felt like some doomed protagonist in a horror movie where every step could be her last. Then a bunch of gift notifications lit up the screen, which helped calm her nerves a bit and lifted her mood since she was already getting way more engagement than usual. She hyped herself up, saying she'd risk it all for them today, then took a deep breath and slowly moved toward the room entrance. Unlike watching horror movies where she could just close her eyes during the scary parts, she couldn't do that here because something might attack her while she wasn't looking. She muttered to herself that nothing fake could actually scare her. Instead of going straight in, she kept her distance and tried to peek through the crack to see what was inside. But the game designers clearly saw this coming and basically forced her hand. She told her chat she was about to open the door and reached for the handle. Right when her fingers were about to touch it, a pale white face suddenly appeared in the gap. It let out this creepy laugh and slammed the door shut with a loud bang. The whole thing was so intense that Susu's entire body shook and her heart felt like it stopped for a second. She completely lost it, screaming that she was done and couldn't do this anymore. She ripped off the headset and just started crying, disappearing from the stream entirely. Nobody watching the stream questioned whether her reaction was real, because everyone watching felt that same gut punch of terror themselves. The chat exploded with people saying they completely froze when that ghost showed up, that they nearly jumped out of their chairs and still hadn't calmed down. People kept saying they'd never seen anything that scary before and that the whole thing was just too much to handle. Then someone noticed she'd suddenly disappeared from the stream, and people figured she probably ran off crying because the whole experience messed her up that badly. The chat agreed nobody could really blame her for that since the game was genuinely horrifying. After watching everything go down, the audience felt pretty sympathetic since they'd witnessed the whole thing and understood just how terrifying it actually was. The thing was, Susu had been wearing a VR headset and was completely immersed in the game world, way more than what regular viewers experienced. It was basically like watching a horror movie from the main character's perspective, except she was that main character. What the audience saw versus what she actually felt were two completely different things. So Susu came running into Fengbin's room with tears streaming down her face. Fengbin had been watching her stream on his computer, and the second he saw her come in, he got up to meet her at the door. She walked up to him and started lightly hitting him while crying, asking why he'd picked such a terrifying game and saying he really scared her. Bin just stood there and let her hit him a few times, telling her he knew he messed up and didn't think it through. Then he pulled her into a hug and gently reminded her that he'd warned her the game was extremely scary, but she'd insisted on playing it anyway. Susu wiped the tears from her eyes with the back of her hand, getting Bin's shirt a little wet, but he didn't care at all. He told her that if the game was causing her this much pain, she should just stop playing it since nobody was forcing her to do this. He understood way too well how much fear and psychological stress the game caused, and he genuinely didn't want Susu going through that anymore. After resting against him for a bit, Susu's mood started settling down. She mumbled something about how there were so many people watching just now and how they'd given her tons of gifts. For a streamer, nothing mattered more than fan support, and in those few minutes, Susu had felt a level of attention she'd never experienced before, with fans showering her with gifts and making the whole atmosphere incredibly lively. Bin nodded and confirmed that she'd just been the most popular person on the entire Douyu platform. Susu asked in surprise if her ranking was really that high, since she'd been so absorbed in the game that she hadn't noticed any of these changes. Before this, she'd been considered a second-tier streamer with a pretty significant gap between her and the top internet celebrities, but now her stream's popularity had blown past all the competition. Bin encouraged her to relax and said they'd have more opportunities in the future, that she wouldn't need to work so hard every day and could just enjoy life. He really meant it too, since with more and more game projects coming out, making money was only a matter of time. But Susu said firmly that she'd continue with her streaming career. She hadn't really heard what Bin said after that because she was already stunned by this sudden achievement. As a dedicated streamer, it was hard to give up when so many fans were showing her this kind of recognition. Bin reminded her to be careful and not push herself too hard, mainly because he was worried about her well-being. Susu took a deep breath and said it was fine, that everything happened in virtual space, so no matter how scary things got, it was all just a story. Then she turned back to the camera and apologized to everyone, explaining she'd been too scared and had to step away for a moment. The chat immediately reassured her that it wasn't her fault and that the game was just too terrible. People said they were almost devastated themselves, and while they were worried about her, they still hoped she could push through to the end because the experience was absolutely fantastic. Then everyone started sending more gifts to help calm her nerves. Various gift animations flooded the screen, and when Susu glanced at the viewer count, she could hardly believe what she was seeing. 300,000 people were currently watching online, and the number just kept climbing. Even the most popular internet celebrities usually only pulled a few 100,000 viewers on a regular day. So this gave Susu even more confidence to keep going. She announced that since everyone was being so supportive, she'd continue the broadcast. After making that decision, she geared up for another virtual reality session, put on the equipment, took some deep breaths, and slipped the goggles back on. In an instant, she found herself back in that bone-chilling corridor, with her character standing perfectly fine right outside the bathroom door. Susu backed away fast, thinking about that little devil hiding in the bathroom. She knew what was lurking there and wasn't about to go near it again, so she figured she'd check out the main door instead, see if anything new was happening on that side. She grabbed the handle and turned it carefully. Click. The door crept open. God, this game's so annoying, Susu muttered. It's literally forcing everyone to look at the bathroom. Whoever made this is such an asshole. The chat started buzzing. People were saying the ghost in the bathroom looked like a little girl. The voice sounded like a kid too. Everyone was discussing that creepy shadow they'd just seen. Susu thought about it more. Yeah, definitely gives off child vibes. Now that she'd calmed down from freaking out earlier, she could actually think straight. The ghost was maybe half her height, high-pitched voice, clearly a kid. But that face, though, completely messed up and horrifying. She figured it had to be the dead child from the case files. Probably got shot in the head, which explained why the face looked so destroyed. The whole thing hit her hard. This poor girl got murdered by her own dad, and now she's just stuck here forever. Feeling weirdly sympathetic, Susu walked into the room. Bang! The door slammed shut behind her. She tried the handle a few times, but it wouldn't budge. Locked from inside, obviously. This time felt different from before. As she got near the end of that gloomy hallway, she heard crying in the distance. Faint sobbing, all broken up and sad, cutting through the dead silence. Oh God, who's crying? Susu was shaking. The chat exploded. Hearts were pounding. Something was definitely off about that sound. Weird that the first 2 times through the hallway were silent, but now on the 3rd time there's suddenly crying. Some people thought it was the little girl, but others said, no way. That's an adult woman's voice. People were taking off their headphones because it was too creepy. The crying sounded strangled. Not even sad, really. Just deeply wrong and eerie. Susu realized it was definitely an adult woman, not the little girl, which meant another ghost was showing up. She swallowed hard, terrified but trying to keep it together. Hey, I'm not scared at all, she yelled out. She kept walking, talking to herself. These jump scares are all fake. I figured out this game's whole deal. This old trick of popping out to scare people is so played out. I'm not falling for it this time. Even if something jumps out, whatever, I'm just gonna charge forward and see what happens." Her voice cut off mid-sentence. She turned the corner and just froze. Eyes wide, pupils huge, staring at what was in front of her. About 10 meters away stood this insanely tall figure. A woman, super thin, almost reaching the ceiling. She was trembling slightly, making these low, strained breathing sounds. The lighting was too dim to see her face clearly, but Susu could make out a torn-up dress and a body straight and thin like a bamboo pole. The chat went crazy. Wait, she just turned the corner and ran straight into this thing? That's literally running into a ghost. Susu totally jinxed herself. She said it would jump out, but nope, it's just standing right there in front of her. That thing's gotta be 3 meters tall at least. This is terrifying. Everyone watching was losing it. The little girl jumping out to scare people was one thing, but this ghost was literally just standing in the middle of the hallway, blocking the way. The ghost kept twitching and sobbing, completely ignoring Susu. Neither of them moved. Susu was breathing hard, trying to calm down, but her mind had gone completely blank. So Susu totally freaked out and started asking her chat what to do. She was stuttering and everything, saying she had this bad feeling about moving forward. Like, what if that thing just rushed at her or something? The chat kept telling her to just go check it out since it's only a game. But she wasn't having it. She kept saying it's easy for them to talk when they're not the ones dealing with this scary shit. Her whole body was shaking without her even trying to control it. She straight up told her viewers she wanted to quit because her heart felt like it was going to explode. She actually started backing up, but then people in the chat reminded her that all the doors behind her were locked anyway. So she realized she had no choice but to keep going forward. She told everyone to send her gifts if they wanted her to continue, then took this deep breath and started moving toward the woman. Her legs were shaking the whole time as she got closer and closer. She was ready to bail the second that woman moved even a little bit. Then out of nowhere, the hallway lights just shut off completely. The woman disappeared into the darkness and Susu screamed. She was losing it, asking how she was supposed to move forward now. The chat was going crazy. Some people telling her to just close her eyes and run through it. Others saying the game designer was messed up for pulling this kind of stuff. Susu was about to quit again when someone in chat pointed out that the crying had stopped. She froze and listened. And yeah, the sound was completely gone. Maybe the ghost actually left? She was still too scared to move though, just standing there in the pitch black. Then the lights came back on without warning. Everything got bright again and the woman was actually gone. Susu felt this huge relief wash over her, grateful she didn't have to feel her way through a dark hallway. The whole thing had her messed up because people are just naturally scared of the dark. Light makes everyone feel safe. Darkness does the opposite. Why the whole place felt heavy and oppressive, and with everything pitch black, the game was basically impossible to enjoy. Susu tried to get her head straight, took a breath, and kept moving forward, taking each step super carefully because she was terrified that tall female ghost would just pop out from somewhere. The first stretch of hallway seemed fine, but then she reached the spot that made her heart race, right in front of that bathroom. And of course, the thing she was dreading actually happened. This creepy creaking sound echoed out, and before Susu could even get close, the bathroom door just swung open on its own. Not just a crack, but wide open, like some gaping mouth ready to swallow whatever came near. The chat in her livestream completely lost it. People were saying they couldn't watch anymore, that going in there was definitely going to be bad news, and some were literally dimming their screens because they were too scared. Everyone watching was on edge, hearts practically jumping out of their chests. Susu started venting at her audience, calling them out for being too scared to watch but still making her go through with it. She told them she wasn't going in that bathroom whether the door was open or not, that she'd just stay in the hallway instead. She went off about how the game designer was obviously just trying to mess with people and she wasn't going to play along with it. But right in the middle of her rant, all the lights in the corridor just cut out instantly. Everything went completely black, the kind of darkness where she couldn't see her own hand in front of her face. Susu screamed, and the sound echoed through the whole hallway. She was freaking out, saying the game was unplayable like this, and that darkness was the thing she feared most. She crouched down on the ground, too terrified to move, and told everyone she was done, that the game just wasn't for her. Then her chat started encouraging her again, pointing out that there was light coming from the bathroom. People were telling her to calm down and check it out, that it was all fake anyway, and a bunch of them started sending donations to support her. With everyone backing her up like that, Susu found some confidence again. She realized the bathroom was the only place with any light now, just this faint glow coming from inside while the rest of the hallway stayed pitch black. She got frustrated, feeling like the game was literally forcing her to go in there. The designer had clearly turned off every light except that one just to make her go inside. So now Susu had two options: either fumble through the pitch black hallway with no idea what was waiting for her, or check out the bathroom that at least had some light but might have that creepy little girl inside. Neither option seemed great. She took another deep breath, something she'd been doing constantly while playing this game. Her head was spinning from either the stress or just pure fear. Maybe both. Finally, with everyone in chat pushing her forward, she decided to check the bathroom first, though she promised herself she'd quit immediately if anything too scary happened. At least some light was better than none, and running into the little girl seemed better than meeting that tall ghost. Susu got up and started moving toward the bathroom, though calling it walking was generous. She was basically shuffling along the wall, being as careful as humanly possible. So Susu finally got to where he needed to go, but he didn't just barge into the bathroom right away. He stuck his head in first to scope things out, thinking if he spotted that creepy little girl coming at him, he'd just bail. But when he looked inside, everything was dead quiet. Nothing moving at all. Just a flashlight sitting there on the nasty floor with its light barely cutting through the dark. The chat was hyping him up, telling him to grab it, so after making sure the coast was clear, Susu crept into the bathroom. He stayed tense the whole time, though. Once he picked up that flashlight, he felt a bit better, but not by much. The place was too cramped and sketchy for any real comfort. Before he could even catch his breath, he started sweeping the light around to see what he was dealing with. First thing he noticed was the floor, covered in grime and what looked like bloodstains. The sticky, gross mess looked fresh enough to make him wonder if it came from that little girl. The whole thing felt way too real, like the game was messing with his head on purpose. Fighting back the urge to puke, Susu checked out the rest of the room. The bathroom was tiny, maybe 6 or 7 square meters, with just a sink, toilet, and bathtub crammed in there. Then he turned toward the sink and nearly had a heart attack. There was someone just standing there in the shadows. He screamed, shaking all over, and dropped the flashlight. The chat jumped in quick though, telling him to chill because it was just a mirror. Once he realized what happened, Susu grabbed the flashlight off the ground and confirmed it was just his reflection. But the whole thing had him even more on edge now, like danger was hiding everywhere in this cold, lifeless place. When he looked at the mirror again though, something hit him hard. The reflection showed a guy in a jacket and jeans, the same dude from the photo by the door. The chat went absolutely nuts, realizing Susu was playing as the victim's husband. Everyone started freaking out, wondering if that meant he was actually the killer and if the game was going to punish him for it. Susu was tripping too, touching his face and watching the mirror copy his movements. The whole thing felt so real he almost forgot he was just playing a game. His voice was still his own at least, but seeing himself as someone else was messing with him bad. He looked away quick because staring at that reflection late at night with just a flashlight was too much. That's when he noticed something dark under the sink, and it was moving. He jumped back against the wall, screaming, trying to keep his distance while shining the light on whatever it was. Lying there in the sink was this messed up baby-looking thing with purple-red skin and twisted limbs. The worst part was its face. Just a mouth, nothing else. The thing kept squirming around like some kind of insect, and Susu just stood there frozen, barely able to ask what the hell he was looking at. The thing looked really strange to everyone watching. Someone pointed out it looked like a baby with developmental issues. Then people started connecting it to that murder case from a few days back where the victim was pregnant. So naturally, everyone figured this had to be the unborn child, which explained why it looked so underdeveloped. But then the real question hit. How the hell did a baby end up in the pool? The thought crept in that maybe the murderer actually cut the fetus out after killing the woman. People couldn't wrap their heads around how twisted someone would have to be to do something like that. Meanwhile, Susu wanted absolutely nothing to do with any of this anymore. Then out of nowhere, a loud cry echoed through the entire room. She immediately tensed up, knowing she had to get out of there right now. But that's when things got worse. The crying just kept bouncing off the walls. People in the chat started freaking out, saying they heard it too, that it was that woman's crying again, and now it was coming from the hallway. The wailing kept getting closer and louder, and everyone knew the ghost had found her. The sound came through again, this time crystal clear, like someone was crying right next to her ear. Susu could feel the sobs coming from behind that ordinary-looking door right in front of her. She felt completely hopeless, sobbing and muttering that the game was terrifying, like actual mental torture. Her emotions spiraled until she finally broke down crying. At that point, her mind went completely blank, and her body just curled up in the corner of the bathroom, trembling with every hair standing on end. After a bit, the strange crying stopped, but the baby's crying stuck around. Susu muttered to herself, wondering if the ghost had left, and started getting up to check things out. Then suddenly, rapid banging erupted from outside the door. The bathroom door shook violently like something was slamming against it. She screamed and scrambled back into the corner, crying and asking what she should do, convinced that if the ghost got in, she was done for. She looked at her live stream chat for help, tears running down her face. The viewers were losing it too, telling her to stay still, warning her that things could go south any second. calling it an explosive threat. People were sweating, begging her to come back, saying they couldn't handle the pressure anymore. Susu just stared at that shaking wooden door, bracing herself for the worst. Then, after one loud crash, the sound that had been going for about 10 seconds just stopped. Even weirder, the baby crying from the bathroom disappeared at the exact same time. Everything, the crying, the mysterious noises, the knocking, all of it vanished. The whole space dropped into this creepy, dead silence. Susu stayed curled up in the corner, breathing hard. After waiting a bit with no signs of anything weird, it seemed like the danger had passed. She decided right then she'd never do another one of these horror adventures again, knowing it would take forever to recover from this. When she tried standing up, her legs were too weak and shaky to support her. Fear had literally made it hard for her to move, and even someone who seemed brave would be useless in that kind of environment. After pulling herself together mentally, she finally felt some strength come back. With serious effort, she managed to straighten up and stand. Even though it wasn't physically exhausting, she needed to breathe through the tension. She leaned against the wall, thinking hard about whether those terrifying things were still outside and if she should go check. The thought of opening the door and immediately running into something horrible made her hesitate. The chat agreed she should wait longer, be more cautious, suggesting the ghost might be hiding outside waiting to strike. So she stayed put a while longer, until she finally calmed down. After half a minute of peace and quiet, she figured maybe they'd actually left. After watching and confirming there was no movement, she worked up the courage and started walking toward the door. So the whole time, this cold feeling kept creeping up his back. He figured it was just sweat making him feel chilly and didn't think much of it. But then he walked past a mirror and something caught his eye. There was another figure pressed right up against him. This thing was insanely tall. And that's when it hit him that something was seriously wrong. He spun around and this pale, messed up face screamed right in his face. The thing had these bulging eyes that just glowed with this dark, nasty light, and it went from crying to smiling in the creepiest way possible. Its long fingers were digging into Susu's shoulders and she was losing it, begging for help while scrambling on the ground trying to get away. Everything just went white in her head, heart absolutely racing like never before. She'd never felt terror like that in her life and was basically having a full meltdown. But then the screen just cut to black and showed game over. The ghost got her. Even after the game ended, Susu kept screaming for help until her voice gave out. She ripped off the VR headset and just collapsed on the floor looking like death, completely drained from what felt like an actual fight for survival. The chat absolutely exploded. Everyone was freaking out about how intense that twist was, hearts still pounding from the shock. Some sharp viewers started piecing it together. The crying stopped because the ghost mom had already snuck in, and the baby felt safe with her there. The ghost had been following Susu the entire time without anyone noticing until that mirror scene. People realized those warnings before the game weren't just for show. Anyone with heart problems playing this would be in serious danger because compared to this, every other horror game and movie out there was basically nothing. Feng Bin was chilling in the next room keeping tabs on his sister's stream when he heard some crazy screaming that suddenly cut to dead silence, so he bolted over to check on her. After she finished playing this VR game, Susu just sat there looking completely out of it like someone had unplugged her brain. Feng Bin walked up asking if she was good, and Susu, who normally kept pretty quiet, started explaining how she legit thought she was gonna die for a second, and her heart basically stopped. But her voice was still shaking pretty bad. So clearly she was still messed up from whatever just happened. He told her to chill for a sec while he helped her up, but she said her legs were still shaking too much to even stand. So he told her it was cool and that it was just a game before grabbing her some water. Susu leaned back against the bed and chugged the whole thing down while still trembling. Watching all this go down made Feng Bin realize his game was actually insane because the PC version was already pretty horrifying, but after he converted it to VR and threw in some extra stuff, the whole thing became way more intense. He figured before they actually released it, they'd need to think hard about how to market it since it could seriously mess with people's heads if they weren't careful. The stream chat was going off with people hoping Susu was okay and saying how sweet it was that her brother came to check on her, with some folks admitting they probably couldn't handle the game either, even though they considered themselves pretty tough. All these comments were coming through crystal clear and hitting home with a bunch of viewers. Then Susu suddenly gestured for her brother to come closer, so Feng Bin leaned down to hear her better, and she whispered super quietly, asking him to grab her some pants. He looked confused for a second and glanced down before she got all embarrassed, telling him not to look and blaming the game for going too hard. He quickly looked away and asked where her clothes were, and she pointed at the wardrobe while reminding him to make sure the audience couldn't see anything, because that would be way too embarrassing. Feng Bin checked and confirmed the camera was only showing the game screen so they were good. Then Susu told him to bring the pants and come with her to the bathroom. He said he got it and went to grab some clothes since he definitely wasn't expecting her to get that freaked out. Around the same time, this big streamer, Xiao was doing his thing playing League of Legends, and he usually pulled like 50 to 60,000 viewers, which made him pretty respected in the scene. After wrapping up a match, he was laughing about being MVP again. But when he checked his numbers, he completely froze because his viewer count had tanked hard and was still dropping. He started freaking out, asking where everyone went. And some helpful person in chat explained that everyone bounced to watch Susu play this insane, scary game that looked more like a movie than actual gameplay. Hearing this left Xiao Shuai confused about what kind of game could pull that many people away from his stream. And apparently other big streamers like Monkey and Teacher were noticing the same weird drop and trying to figure out what was happening. They all came to the same conclusion that everyone had migrated over to Susu's channel. So these curious streamers opened up her stream only to find it sitting on a game over screen. The chat was packed with people worried about her since she hadn't said anything in like 10 minutes, with viewers saying she probably needed time to recover because the game was legitimately terrifying and even just watching made their hearts race. People were talking about wanting to download and try it themselves, but also being scared they wouldn't be able to handle it. Seeing all this crazy engagement left the other streamers completely stunned. This situation almost never happened in their streams. Right when they were thinking about hitting up Susu to see what was going on, she finally came back online. Turns out she'd just run to the bathroom to splash some water on her face and change her pants. And while she seemed a bit better, she still looked pretty shaken up. She jumped right in explaining that she couldn't handle it anymore and had to step away for a minute to pull herself together. The chat immediately started backing her up, saying they totally got it and that most people would have bailed way earlier. Then everyone started throwing gifts at her to make her feel better. At first, it was just the usual flowers and cheap stuff, but then the big spenders started rolling in. Out of nowhere, someone dropped a royal gift box worth hundreds of thousands, and the whole chat absolutely lost it. Even other streamers watching, including Xiao Shuai, were sitting there jealous as hell, and Susu herself didn't even know how to react. Her face had been ghost white before, but seeing that massive gift and all the love in the chat brought some color back to her cheeks. She pulled herself together pretty quick and thanked everyone, promising she'd keep grinding to make better content for them. But then she hit them with the real talk. No amount of money was getting her back into Silent Hill. That game had messed her up too badly, and she was done with it. Pretty much everyone in chat said they understood and that she'd already gone further than most people would have. She appreciated that and kept going, saying that even though the game scared the shit out of her, it was actually really well made. She explained how the creator clearly knew what they were doing, putting real effort into the story. Every time something scary happened, there were hints leading up to it. The little girl always knocked first. The wife was crying before she showed up. Even that creepy smile scene had warnings. Nothing just jumped out randomly like those garbage horror movies that only go for cheap scares. The chat started picking up on all those details too, realizing the game was way more thoughtful than they'd given it credit for. Susu kept praising the atmosphere, saying just looking at that haunted house was enough to freak anyone out. The weird part was that actual scary moments only happened twice during her playthrough, but she'd been terrified the entire time because of how the environment messed with her head. The only real problem was that the game was so intense it probably went beyond what normal players could handle, and she wouldn't be shocked if someone actually developed issues from playing it. That's when the chat shifted to everyone asking where they could download it. People were saying they wanted to try it themselves, or more accurately, they wanted to watch their friends suffer through it, which got everyone cracking up about how evil that was. That question became the hottest topic in the stream for the rest of the night. Even though the viewers had already watched the whole intense experience through the live stream, they were itching to try it themselves. Nothing like this had ever felt so real and immersive before. When someone asked about the download link, Susu rushed off to find her brother Fengbin, who was busy coding some new project. She came back pretty quick with an answer. The game would drop on Steam tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Someone in chat immediately asked how much it had cost. Susu told them straight up, completely free, no charge at all. The chat absolutely lost it. People couldn't believe something this polished was free. The graphics alone already beat most big budget games that usually ran for hundreds of yuan, and the story was genuinely gripping. Someone wondered if there'd be microtransactions or paid skins hidden inside, since that's how most free games worked these days, always hitting paywalls or needing cash to actually enjoy the full thing. But others shot that down pretty quick. The game looked like a pure single-player horror adventure, the kind where the whole experience was already there without spending a dime. The chat started joking around. Maybe players could pay to become a Taoist priest and punch ghosts with their bare hands, or drop enough cash to become some legendary ghost hunter. Everyone got a good laugh out of that. Susu explained with a smile that this was just an open beta, not the finished version yet. The developer was releasing it free to gather feedback and make improvements. She told everyone to check it out themselves tomorrow and stop keeping her there. That cleared things up for the viewers. They started hyping up the release, saying they'd definitely try it. After chatting a bit more, Susu wrapped up the stream. The broadcast had been huge for her. Over 600,000 viewers at peak, pulling in around 200,000 RMB in donations after taxes. A massive win. But she wasn't trying to keep streaming. The whole experience had shaken her up pretty good, and she just needed to decompress. After ending the stream, she headed straight to her brother's room for some comfort. Fengbin was deep in his code, hammering away at the keyboard and making final tweaks. After watching Susu's first playthrough, he realized the game needed safety features. VR tech could already monitor heart rate and blood pressure, so he decided to add an automatic shutdown. If someone's vitals went outside healthy ranges, the game would just exit on its own. A safety net, basically. The last thing he wanted was his game actually hurting someone or worse. The second Susu walked in, she couldn't hold back. She asked where he'd found this incredible game, saying she'd seen plenty of stuff but nothing on this level. Fengbin looked up with a grin. He told her he'd made it himself. What did she think he'd been doing on the computer all those days? Just playing games? Susu stared at Fengbin, totally shocked, asking if he actually made this thing. She couldn't believe something this impressive came from him. Fengbin just shrugged and said, what else could he say? Susu looked him over again, wondering if this was really the same lazy kid who just messed around all day. Even knowing he studied this stuff, seeing what he pulled off was pretty wild. Fengbin didn't feel like getting into it, so he just asked what she thought of the game. Susu admitted it was really good but way too intense. Even someone who thought they were brave wouldn't want to go through that twice. Fengbin grinned and brought up how scared she got during the game. Susu's face went bright red, and she grabbed his shoulders hard, insisting it was only because she drank too much water and couldn't hold it anymore. She made him swear not to tell anyone, not even their parents, or she'd never forgive him. She shook him so hard he got dizzy and kept nodding, until she finally let go. Then Susu remembered something and asked why he wasn't selling the game online since he could probably make some decent money off it. The quality was solid even for a beta version, and the immersive VR experience blew everything else on the market out of the water. That alone made it worth something. Fengbin just smiled and said this was just him testing things out. He'd make more games later with better profit potential. Turns out letting Susu try Silent Hill PT was a genius move. That same night, both she and the game blew up online. The video of her playing spread everywhere and the views went crazy. People in the comments were losing their minds over how realistic and terrifying the game looked. Some thought they were watching a first-person horror movie. Others joked about making their brothers try it first when it came out. Everyone started guessing who made it. Some said Tencent, but others shot that down saying Tencent could never make something this good. People wondered if it was some big foreign company, but the video came from a Chinese streamer and everything was in Chinese, so maybe it was domestic. Some mentioned Netwing or Zhulong, but most found it hard to believe the country's tech scene could produce something at this level, though they'd be happy if it was true. As the video spread, people kept debating who was behind Silent Hill PT. Even though everything in the game was in Chinese, a lot of folks doubted it was actually made domestically since the gaming tech scene there wasn't that advanced yet. The video caught fire overseas too. The gaming scene there was way more open, and foreign players were just as stunned by the footage. They couldn't believe the graphics quality was actually from a game and not just some movie. When they heard it was called Silent Hill and came from China, most were skeptical. Some flat out said Chinese people exaggerate and this was probably fake, just a publicity stunt. A few streamers mentioned the game was dropping on Steam the next day, so everyone would find out soon enough. Some foreign players were excited to try it if it was real, but most were convinced there was no way China could develop something like this. So people in South Korea started tearing the video apart online, saying the whole thing had to be fake. Everyone figured it was just another scam since all the big games came from Europe, America, or Japan anyway. China had some dragon games that did okay, but they were mostly cute cartoon stuff that never really lasted. The country had never put out a real OA game before, not even one, so when this crazy realistic footage showed up, nobody believed it was legit. But Silent Hill PT actually blew up. Fengbin's video went from a few 100 likes to 100,000, then a million, and eventually settled around 3 million in just a few hours. The guy was already thinking about how the official release tomorrow would pull even bigger numbers, so he started planning the next project. He'd already picked the name too, Waterworld, that underwater exploration game where players spend most of their time diving through this mysterious ocean. The first-person view would let them see all the beautiful scenery while still getting creeped out. When Fengbin first played it, the visuals had blown him away, and with VR tech being so good now, it seemed like a waste not to make it happen. He was about to call it a night and get some sleep when Susu crept into his room wearing pink bear pajamas and clutching a cushion. The guy just stared at her, completely confused about why his sister was showing up this late. She stood there looking uncomfortable before saying she was worried he'd be scared sleeping alone and wanted to stay with him. Fungbin told her he was way too old for nightmares and she should just go back to bed. But Susu cut him off and said if she thought he'd be scared, then he'd be scared. End of story. Before he could say anything else, she walked over to the bed and yanked the covers back, then spun around and yelled at him for lying there with no clothes on. He tried explaining that sleeping naked was just his thing, but she shot back asking how he could do that when he knew she was coming. The guy said he obviously didn't know she was coming, but she just told him to put something on. He threw on his pajamas, and once he confirmed he was dressed, Susu climbed into bed without another word. Fungbin asked if she was actually serious about sleeping there, and Susu finally let it all out. The game had freaked her out so bad she couldn't stop thinking about that ghost in the hallway, and now she was too scared to sleep alone. Every time she closed her eyes, she felt like the thing was about to jump out at her. She wasn't trying to make things weird since they were both adults and it was already kind of awkward with the whole older sister, younger brother situation, but the game had messed her up that badly. She couldn't even go to the bathroom without turning on every light in the place. Fungbin didn't really know what to say to that. He admitted he probably should have thought it through better and told her she could stay. There wasn't much point in arguing about it, and they used to sleep in the same bed when they were kids anyway, so it wasn't that big a deal. The next morning around 7, Susu was still passed out and snoring while Fungbin got up and opened his computer to check out Steam. The platform was one of the biggest game distribution sites in the world, hosting games from everywhere and taking a 20% cut from each sale. Setting up an account was pretty straightforward. Just register and link a bank card. Fungbin created his account under the name New World Game Studio, hoping the name would say it all. He wanted to bring players a completely new gaming experience through this account. Then, he started uploading the game files. After about 20 minutes, everything was finally wrapped up. Fungbin had promised to make the game free. So once the setup was complete, he grabbed a quick sip of water and hit publish right at 9:00 am. The second Silent Hill went live. The download count shot from 0 to 1852. He refreshed the screen, and it jumped again to 4251. The speed caught him off guard. Susu's preview stream from the night before had clearly done its job. People had been camping out waiting for this thing to drop, and now they were going crazy downloading it. Fungbin had figured a horror game like Silent Hill would be pretty niche, but the response was way bigger than anyone expected. Susu's voice came from the bedroom, still groggy from sleep. "Did it go through okay?" "Just posted it," Fungbin called back. "How many downloads so far?" He refreshed the page. "Already past 10,000. Susu practically launched herself out of bed, threw on her slippers, and rushed over to see for herself. The number on screen read 12,430. She just stared at it, completely stunned by how fast it was climbing. Only a few minutes and it's already like this. She smacked her thighs a few times, groaning about what a massive loss this was. If we'd charged even just $1 per person, we'd be making millions right now. Such a waste. She kept shaking Fungbin's shoulder, looking genuinely pained about it. Fungbin gave her a tired smile and told her to drop it. The whole reason so many people were downloading it was because it was free. Plus, the game only took about 10 minutes to beat if someone knew what they were doing. Charging money for something that short would have made them look like total scammers. And Fungbin wasn't about to pull that kind of move with an unfinished demo. Susu's eyes went wide. Wait, 10 minutes? The whole thing? She'd sworn it felt like hours when she played it. Fungbin explained that fear messes with how people experience time, makes everything feel slower and longer. That made sense to her. She nodded, then mentioned how wild it was that so many people were apparently into scaring themselves like this. Fungbin figured they should just let people try it and see what happens. Whether they could actually handle playing it was a whole different question. The truth was, Silent Hill PT had kind of missed the mark from what he'd originally intended. It was supposed to be fun, not pure torture. Even horror games needed to be enjoyable on some level. But the atmosphere in this one was so relentlessly intense that it killed the experience for most people. He figured only the hardcore thrill seekers would actually love it. Sure, the visuals were incredible, basically more realistic than anything else out there, but that terrifying vibe would probably keep it from ever going mainstream. Meanwhile, players who'd been waiting forever were hyped that Silent Hill PT had finally dropped. Comments flooded in about rushing to install it and test it out. Some people admitted they'd only give it a shot because the trailer looked decent, wanting to see if it lived up to the hype. Once everyone finished downloading, though, reactions split pretty hard. Some people installed it but couldn't bring themselves to actually start it up. They'd seen Susu's stream and were torn between curiosity and genuine fear. Others, especially players from overseas, were skeptical about whether the footage was even real. They were determined to prove it was all fake hype. One popular streamer was already firing up his broadcast, talking big to his camera about exposing this so-called first-ever horror game. His chat was eating it up, throwing around comments about how Chinese developers always exaggerated everything, how the tech was probably garbage and the video was just marketing BS. The streamer announced he was diving into this legendary game to see what all the fuss was about. He strapped on his VR headset, still grinning, and launched the program. So the guy completely skipped the safety instructions at the start since they were all in Chinese, and he couldn't be bothered reading through everything. Next thing he knew, everything went black, and he ended up in this dark, cockroach-infested room. His smile just died right there on his face. The whole thing was nothing like what the trailer showed him. The streamer just stood there frozen, and while he was trying to figure out what to do, this wooden door in front of him creaked open on its own. He forced himself to move forward and found this weird, narrow hallway stretching out ahead. The guy was completely lost. People watching the stream were pretty shocked too, asking if this was actually real and how the game looked exactly like the promotional video. Some couldn't believe the Chinese developers made something this realistic, while others figured it had to be made overseas and just getting released there first. This wasn't just happening to him, though. Other streamers around the world were starting their Silent Hill PT runs around the same time, all of them skeptical at first. Then every single one of them got hit with the same shock when they saw what was in front of them. Western players especially weren't shy about showing how impressed they were with the graphics, saying the trailer hadn't been lying and the image quality made everything feel incredibly real. The line between what was real and what was virtual just seemed to disappear. But that initial amazement with the visuals didn't stick around for long. Once they got deeper into the game, both the streamers and their viewers started feeling genuinely terrified. Something was banging on the door from outside. A woman's face appeared floating in the bathtub, and she'd suddenly show up right in front of them without warning. Pretty soon, screams from people playing Silent Hill PT were all over the internet. Everyone streaming it was losing their minds. Within an hour, Silent Hill PT shot past a bunch of popular games and became the most talked about thing on the platform. Chinese bloggers saw what was happening and decided to jump on the trend for views. Even though Silent Hill was supposed to be way too scary for most people to handle, plenty of them were willing to risk it for the audience attention and money. Before even going live, this blogger named Sayochi posted on Weibo saying he'd be streaming his Silent Hill PT playthrough that night. Other big names like Teacher Ma, Big Monkey, and Little Sister Dai all said they'd do the same. The major streaming platforms saw the potential and worked overtime setting up special sections for Silent Hill PT, even bumping it to the top of their homepages ahead of League of Legends and the dance channels. Right at 8 p.m. when Sayochi started his stream, viewers immediately flooded the chat, telling him to get started and play the game, joking about how they were waiting to see him get scared. Sayochi told everyone to relax, saying he'd definitely play, but needed to download it first. His announcement worked perfectly. The backend showed 60,000 people watching as soon as he went live. Everyone was clearly interested in Silent Hill, and Sayochi figured he might make some decent money and maybe even blow up overnight like Susu did the night before. After installing the game, Sayochi changed into his motion-sensing suit. He wasn't usually in great shape and rarely played VR games, but he had to try this time to ride the Silent Hill wave. The suit was super tight on him because of his weight, making his fat bulge out in different spots, which had the audience cracking up. He took a deep breath and officially started playing. The first thing that popped up was the safety reminder warning that minors should play with parents watching, and strongly recommending that people with heart conditions, mental illness, high blood pressure, pregnant women, and other sensitive groups should avoid the game entirely. So this woman with high blood pressure asked if she could still play the game. Sayochi saw the message and frowned, thinking someone that flashy probably got high blood pressure from being overweight. People in the chat started warning her to be careful, mentioning how Susu got so scared she cried during her playthrough. The woman brushed it off, saying her blood pressure was controlled with medication, and she'd always been brave, even walking through cemeteries at night as a kid. Full of confidence, she jumped into the game without reading any of the warnings. The game dropped her into this dimly lit house, and at first she was impressed, going on about the graphics and how cool it was that China made something this good. But that excitement died pretty quick once she hit the corridor. The yellow lights, blood everywhere, murder announcements over the speakers. Her face went pale real fast. She started complaining just like Susu did, talking about how narrow and dark everything was, how the blood made it look like an actual crime scene. The fans who'd watched Susu's run found it pretty funny since this woman was already freaking out at the beginning. They knew it'd only get worse when the flashlight became her only light source. And yeah, it got bad. She moved super slowly, turning around like a snail, terrified of running into something. Took her 10 whole minutes just to reach the second area. The viewers got excited because they knew the first big scare was coming up. Someone told her to check out the bathroom, but she refused, saying there had to be something horrible in there. The chat was disappointed since Susu had been braver at this point, and this woman had bragged about wandering cemeteries at night. But the game didn't care about her fear. Right as she got near the door, someone knocked from the other side. She screamed, her whole body shaking. Then the screen went black, with a message saying her blood pressure was too high and she needed to stop playing. She sat there confused for a second. Then the chat exploded. Everyone realized the developers had built-in health monitoring because they knew the game would scare people. People were calling it thoughtful and heartwarming. The woman admitted she'd been feeling dizzy, so the warning actually made sense. Then another message popped up saying it was time to relax, and soft music started playing. The scene switched from that creepy corridor to this cozy pink room covered in flowers and stuffed animals. Kittens and puppies ran up and started rubbing against her legs. The whole vibe went from terrifying to adorable in seconds. Both the woman and her viewers sat there stunned. The chat went crazy, calling it cute and healing, praising the designer for being a genius who knew exactly how to give players a break from the horror. The live stream chat went wild over the adorable scene that popped up out of nowhere, totally different from the usual vibe. Some viewers started catching on that something felt off about the whole thing. The place looked nice enough, but there was this weird ironic twist to it. Throwing in dolls and cute animals created this bizarre contrast that had people laughing. The whole setup felt like the game was treating players like little kids. Viewers figured the designers were being clever with a double meaning, like some kind of hidden Easter egg. Even though the streamer got his blood pressure spiked from the scares, at least he'd found something secret. Feng Bin never meant to mock anyone, though. The guy just wanted to throw in something wholesome to help players chill out after all the tension from Silent Hill PT. Nobody expected the audience to read into it like that. Sayoki thought the pink environment was actually pretty cute at first and got a kick out of the kittens and puppies. But after reading what people were saying online, he started wondering if the designer was actually being sarcastic and looking down on him. The relaxation time ended pretty quick. The pink girly world disappeared and everything went back to the main interface. Saoki said he'd try again because the game was scary as hell, but one knock on the door wasn't enough to make him quit. He insisted the blood pressure monitor had to be broken because there's no way a simple door knock could spike someone's numbers like that. He claimed he was totally fine now, even though he clearly didn't want to start the second round. The thing was, he really was terrified, but the guy had to maintain some backbone. Getting kicked out right at the start from high blood pressure was bad enough, and that pink screen felt like straight-up mockery. Learning from round 1, Saoki went in braver this time and pushed forward without hesitation. The second cycle started up soon enough. When he passed the bathroom, another knock came from the door. This time, Saoki just sneered and kept walking with a blank expression, acting all tough. Then he hit the same problem Susu ran into earlier. The front door wouldn't budge, but the bathroom door behind him started creaking open on its own. That cool composure evaporated instantly. Saoki started freaking out, asking his chat what was happening and how a door could just open by itself. He wanted to know if anyone had watched Susu's videos and what came next. The fans weren't having it, though, and started roasting him, telling him to relax because nothing scary shows up that early. They kept saying Susu was way calmer at this point and could even chat normally, making him look pretty weak in comparison. Hearing all that left Saoki confused, and he had to ask if Susu was really that tough. He couldn't wrap his head around how she could stay calm and chat while he was losing it. The fans confirmed it was true. Saoki figured he had no choice but to check it out, because losing to a girl in the bravery department wasn't an option. So he slowly crept toward the bathroom. The next second caught him completely off guard, when a pale little girl's face appeared through the crack in the door. Xiao Tao let out a scream and fell straight to the ground. His face turned red as an apple, everything got dizzy, and he just collapsed. The game screen went black, and a notification popped up. But after calling out a couple times, Xiao Tao didn't respond at all. The fans started panicking hard, asking what happened and begging him to say something. The chat filled with people hoping nothing serious went down and telling someone to call an ambulance. While everyone stressed out, Xiao Tao's wife Shen Min walked into the room and found him lying there on the VR setup with his face all flushed. She kept calling his name, asking what was wrong. Xiao Tao's voice finally came through all groggy, saying, he was fine, as he opened his eyes and came back around. Shen Min yelled at him about how badly he'd scared her. Xiao Tao explained he'd just fainted from getting scared in a game. Shen Min stood there completely lost because she never plays video games and had no idea what he was talking about. Xiao Tao apologized to everyone watching, admitting he was terrible at the game. This time, he didn't try acting tough and straight up said the game was too scary. He never thought he'd actually pass out from fright, and keeping going could legitimately be dangerous. Even though he really wanted to ride the Silent Hill PT hype wave, his body just couldn't handle it, so he had to give up despite how much it sucked. The chat understood and told him not to risk anything, agreeing that staying healthy mattered way more. The fans showed some sympathy and tried to make Xiao Tao feel better about the whole thing. Xiao Tao got serious for a second and told everyone they really needed to watch out for their health with this game. He admitted he'd been an idiot and skipped right past those safety warnings at the start, but anyone with high blood pressure or heart problems should definitely stay away from it. The guy didn't want anyone else ending up in his situation, regretting everything after it's too late. He wrapped up the stream early since his head was still spinning, and he needed to get himself checked out at the hospital. So, yeah, 2 rounds in and he was already done, logging off to go see a doctor. Teacher Ma was a different story, though. The guy was healthy as hell, no heart issues or blood pressure problems to worry about. He'd actually done his homework too, watching Xiaosu's playthrough and studying up on strategies before jumping in. Since Teacher Ma had already seen what was coming from Xiaosu's video, nothing really caught him off guard. He remembered how Xiaosu handled that one corner and took it nice and slow. Right on cue, this tall, skinny shadow appeared down the hallway, all blurry and creepy. The chat absolutely lost it, spamming warnings everywhere. Everyone was yelling at Teacher Ma to watch out because the lights were about to go dark. They all remembered that moment from Xiaosu's stream, how she thought she was safe, and then got completely blindsided. People were still getting anxiety just thinking about it. The viewers kept talking among themselves while glued to the screen. Sure, Silent Hill PT was free and anyone could download it, but most people were way too scared to actually play the thing themselves. Watching streamers go through hell was way more fun anyway. Teacher Ma was freaking out at this point, taking these huge breaths trying to get his shit together. He'd watched Xiaosu play through this part and knew some seriously messed up stuff was about to go down. The dude was thinking maybe he'd end up like her, scared out of his mind and bolting for the bathroom. So he had this brilliant idea and asked his chat if backing up would help instead of moving forward. The chat immediately shot him down, saying backing up wouldn't do anything since all the doors behind him were locked anyway. Teacher Ma figured it was worth a shot though, even knowing deep down this wasn't going to be simple. He'd seen Xiaosu play it, but actually being in it himself was a whole different thing. If he could avoid the scary part, why not try, right? So he slowly took a step back. That step turned out to be a massive mistake. The second he moved backward, the female ghost that had been completely still suddenly came to life. She let out this insane scream, twisted her body into this freaky pretzel shape, spread her arms wide, and started rushing at Teacher Ma with these weird little steps. Teacher Ma screamed and ran, but that just pissed off the ghost even more and she got way faster. In his panic, he completely forgot he was standing at a corner and slammed straight into the wall after just a few steps. The VR game didn't have pain settings, so his foot just felt stuck for a second. When he looked up, this pale face was right up against his own with 2 skinny hands reaching for his face. Teacher Ma was yelling and begging while he ripped off the VR headset and collapsed on the floor. The ghost vanished, and he was back in his room, lying there pale and gasping for air. His chat was losing it, saying how terrifying that was, and how the ghost suddenly accelerated right into his face. This whole scene was way more intense than anything Susu had dealt with. That ghost moved scary fast, and people who'd watched Susu's streams noticed this was completely different. Back when Susu hit this same spot, the ghost just flashed this creepy smile and that was it. But Teacher Ma got the full treatment, every horrified expression crystal clear. Even after taking off the headset, Teacher Ma couldn't calm down and just sat there, pressing his chest trying to breathe normally. It took like 5 minutes for him to finally chill out a bit. The usually chill Teacher Ma was totally rattled now, complaining loudly about why the ghost rushed him like that, and how he genuinely thought he might die from this game. His chat felt bad for him, wondering why this happened when Susu got through the same part without the ghost attacking at all. People started joking that maybe the ghost attacked because Teacher Ma wasn't handsome enough. Both streamers hit the same evil spirit, so why did Susu get through fine while Teacher Ma got wrecked? Did the game's plot actually change or was it just bad luck? Teacher Ma told his chat he was done with this game for now and needed to play something else to relax because this was way too intense. After getting jumped by that ghost, he completely lost his nerve and bailed on the whole thing. Just like Saoki before him, Teacher Ma tapped out. This same thing was happening in tons of other streams that night. Most streamers had claimed they'd tackle Silent Hill PT, and popular ones like Dai Xiaomei, Mozi, and Da Ma Ho were all confident before starting. But as soon as they got into the game, they got terrified, broke out in cold sweats, and quickly ended their Silent Hill runs. This created this pretty funny situation in the streaming world where every streamer knew Silent Hill PT was the hottest game, so streaming it would definitely pull viewers and rake in donations. But even though everyone knew about the game, nobody wanted to touch it. The thing was just too damn scary. Sure, people love watching horror movies, but actually being in one? That's a whole different story. Classic case of talking big but backing down when it's time to actually do something. That same night, someone posted on the Silent Hill forum asking if anyone had actually beaten the game since they were too scared to play it themselves. The post blew up immediately. Turned out not a single streamer had managed to finish it. One guy with a cocky attitude quit during the second loop and nearly ended up in the hospital from the scare. Teacher Ma made it to the 3rd cycle before some female ghost sent him running. The silly girl didn't even make it far enough to see anything good. And the big monkey couldn't even survive one loop. Everyone kept talking about how different streamers tried and failed at Silent Hill. In the end, Susu performed the best out of all of them, actually making it to the bathroom scene in the third loop. Most others gave up before even getting inside the house. Pretty wild stuff. This whole situation frustrated everyone who wanted to beat the game through someone else. At this rate, the Silent Hill PT beta might actually stay unbeaten forever. The game wasn't just obsessing regular players either. Silent Hill PT's release sent shockwaves through the entire gaming industry. Over at Valve headquarters in Seattle, the company behind Steam and a bunch of classic games, several executives and their assistants were grinding away at Silent Hill PT. As the platform that released the game, they had all the inside info and knew exactly how popular it was. Less than a day in and downloads hit over 20 million. Even for a free game, those numbers were insane. The reaction got so big that the CEO himself decided to check it out. He strapped on the VR equipment and tried Silent Hill PT, but got scared off in less than 5 minutes. Despite running away himself, he had to admit the graphics looked incredibly realistic. This guy had been in the gaming industry for over 20 years and had never seen visuals this good. He called it a landmark work right there. That same night, he called an emergency meeting and had his team tear the game apart. The content planning department got stuck doing deep dives into the game to pull out useful elements for their own projects. The next stretch of time sucked for those team members, forced to venture into the Silent Hill world with VR equipment strapped to their heads. Screams started echoing through the office. People were yelling about suffering, begging for help, swearing they were done with this garbage game. Meanwhile, the development team got assigned to study the game files. But they hit a wall pretty quick. The game files made zero sense. Normally, game files are just code and data, but this time they were staring at code and data they couldn't understand at all. Turned out Silent Hill PT was running on a completely new engine nobody had seen before. When the director heard this news, it caught him off guard. He looked at the documents and realized the realistic graphics came from this new engine. He immediately ordered his team to reverse engineer it based on what they had. But that disappointed them again. Even the best technical talent in the industry, people making hundreds of thousands a month, couldn't extract anything useful from the game. They couldn't figure it out and didn't even have a starting point. Without cracking the Silent Hill PT engine, making a similar game would be basically impossible. After several failed attempts, the director sighed and concluded that Silent Hill PT had to be the work of some industry giant. Developing an engine this good definitely wasn't something a small studio could pull off. The secretary stepped forward with some data they'd collected. Apparently, Silent Hill PT came from a place called New World Game Studio, and their IP address traced back to China. The secretary wondered if maybe a big company like Tencent or NetEase made it. The director just sneered at that suggestion. The director had been dealing with Chinese companies forever, so he knew their big-name games still ran on his company's tech. Plus, the graphics they put out were pretty mediocre at best. The idea of them suddenly building some next-level game engine seemed ridiculous. And if one of those massive companies actually pulled it off, they wouldn't be sneaking around about it. They'd be shouting it from the rooftops. The director shot down that theory completely. He knew exactly what China's major game studios were capable of, and honestly, besides printing money, they didn't have much going for them in the skills department. So everyone started wondering which company could have actually done this. China only had a few big players in gaming, and none of them were exactly world beaters. The director threw out his theory. Microsoft had to be behind New World Studios. Maybe they were keeping it quiet for some reason and dropped the game in China to throw people off the trail. Maybe they were cooking up something massive. Microsoft was dominating the internet space globally and had serious game development chops, so the theory made sense. Was Microsoft really about to flip the entire gaming industry on its head and drag everyone into true virtual reality? The more the director thought about it, the more it clicked. Silent Hill PT felt insanely real. Aside from not actually hurting, it was basically indistinguishable from real life. Even the studio name, New World, seemed like a pretty obvious hint. If this was legit, Microsoft was basically ushering in a whole new era. The assistant nervously asked what they should do now. The R&D team had already taken a crack at it but came up empty. The content team just reported that several people had literally passed out from fear playing the game, and some employees were straight up refusing to continue because it was too terrifying to handle. Hearing that, the director wanted to lose it on them, but he remembered he'd only lasted a few minutes himself before getting spooked and rage-quitting. He swallowed his frustration and told them to reach out using the contact info New World Studios left behind, keep it professional, and express interest in working together. The director smiled at the thought. If they could partner up with Microsoft, they'd be able to make games as realistic as Silent Hill PT down the line. They'd get a head start on the whole metaverse thing and lock down a prime position early. Meanwhile, Valve and a bunch of other international gaming heavyweights were going through the exact same thing. Ubisoft, Konami, Sony, everyone was trying to crack open the game files and getting absolutely nowhere. Screams kept echoing through their office buildings during testing sessions, even triggering police calls a few times because Silent Hill was just that terrifying. Valve wasn't playing around, though. They straight up refused to share any customer info, keeping everything locked down tight. They figured if they gave everyone access to the contact details, they'd lose their competitive edge. With foreign companies going all in, the domestic ones obviously weren't sitting idle either. Tencent and NetEase called emergency overnight meetings about Silent Hill PT. At first, they tried the same approach as everyone else. Play the game, dig through the files. But if the big international studios with all their resources couldn't crack it, Tencent didn't stand a chance since they didn't even have their own game engine. Still, the major domestic companies had their own playbook. The guy running Tencent's game division laid it out with total confidence. Dig up everything about them, and if possible, just buy the whole studio outright. Their strategy was always the same. Try to copy it first, and if that doesn't work, throw money at it until they own it. Simple, blunt, but it worked over and over again with their deep pockets backing them up. The leader kept going, saying once they bought New World Studios, they'd have them make whatever games Tencent wanted. He'd tried Silent Hill PT briefly, and even though it scared him so badly he pissed himself, the graphics blew his mind. Using that level of photorealistic quality on a horror game that was free seemed like total insanity and a complete waste. His first move after acquiring the studio would be having them build a hyper-realistic VR version of Crossfire, then flood it with paid items and weapon skins. Hundreds of different sets. Each skin would go for at least 99 yuan, with regular, collectors, and epic versions. Printing money daily would be easy. These game developers really had no clue how to actually monetize anything. The boss couldn't believe what he was seeing. These guys were sitting on a gold mine and didn't even know it. He shook his head, thinking about how horror games weren't going to bring in the cash, but hey, that's where he came in to set them straight. His eyes lit up, calculating the fat commission waiting for him once this acquisition went through. Tencent wasn't the only one circling New World studios like sharks. NetEase and Hame Games were sniffing around, and even random companies like 370 and Huawei that had nothing to do with gaming were suddenly interested. These investor types saw what everyone else missed. The crazy realistic tech in Silent Hill PT could work way beyond just video games. Pretty soon, every major internet company started asking around about New World Studio. Nobody had their contact info, but word got out that some streamer called Susu was tight with them. The day after Silent Hill PT dropped, Feng Bin was riding high, watching his awesome value counter blow up. The numbers just kept climbing past 1 million and charging toward 10 million. Steam downloads hit over 30 million, and hundreds of thousands of reviews poured in with 70% of them absolutely loving it. The comment section was pure gold. People were calling it groundbreaking, saying it was going to revolutionize gaming, praising how the scenes felt like being stuck in an actual horror movie. One comment warned everyone to take that opening warning seriously, or things might get real. Another asked how many people downloaded it but were too scared to actually open it. Someone joked about being a completionist who had to finish every game until this one cured that problem real quick. The jokes kept coming. One about neighbors screaming because they're playing Silent Hill PT, another about a kid who chose studying over playing and got into Tsinghua University, and this dark one about a noisy roommate who ended up sitting quietly in the morgue after playing. The humor was endless. Feng Bin cracked up reading through everything. The internet really knew how to have a good time. Someone nicknamed it Corridor Simulator, since players just wandered hallways the whole time, and it caught on instantly. Everyone started calling it that as a running joke, but something bugged him. Why did his free game have 30% negative reviews? That seemed pretty high for any game. Maybe it scared people too badly? He clicked into the negative reviews and everything made sense. Foreign players were flooding the section begging for English support. German versions, Italian, Korean, Japanese, basically any language but Chinese. They were stuck, using Google Translate just to play, which killed the whole experience. Feng Bin hadn't seen that coming. Not really his fault though, since this was just a beta test release. So he only bothered with simplified Chinese for everything. Voices, subtitles, the works. Foreign players couldn't follow the story at all, but the game was so good they refused to give up on it. Leaving negative reviews was their only move. These overseas players even started a whole campaign on Twitter demanding English support for Silent Hill PT, and within hours it was trending hard. Chinese players found the whole thing hilarious. They were joking about how the tables had turned, how fortunes really do change, and how they should make foreign players suffer through the same stuff they always dealt with. But underneath all the jokes, everyone felt pretty damn proud. Back in the day, Chinese gamers were always begging foreign companies to add Chinese language support to their games. Now the tables have turned completely. Domestic gamers couldn't help feeling proud about it. Like finally, foreign players were the ones begging Chinese developers for updates. Fangbin stared at all the comments asking for an English version and thought about it for a bit. He decided to pull some overtime and add English support to Silent Hill PT. More players meant more fame, which meant more surprise points for him. Other languages, though, not happening. The game was free anyway, so he wasn't about to kill himself making a bunch of versions. English alone was already pretty generous. The funny thing was, even though people worldwide were going crazy talking about the game online, hardly anyone actually had the guts to play it. Fangbin had built an achievement system into Silent Hill PT so players could unlock stuff as they progressed. The easiest one was called, "If you're a man, last 3 minutes." Literally just stay in the game for 3 minutes. Millions of players had gotten that one since the bar was so low. The next achievement was "A Glimpse That Shocked You," which required spotting the ghost girl through the door crack during the second loop. Way fewer players unlocked that one, less than 1 million. The third achievement dropped off even harder. It was called Fourth Cycle, and only tens of thousands of players worldwide had reached it. The deeper into the game people went, the more the numbers tanked. The hardest achievement was Perfect Completion. Find all the hidden clues, help the protagonist escape the ghost girl, get out of the haunted house, and finish the whole Silent Hill challenge. So far, not a single player had pulled it off. Fangbin sat there with his chin in his hand, looking at the stats. Maybe he'd made the game too hard. It'd be pretty embarrassing if his first game just completely stonewalled everyone. He figured maybe he should drop some hints. But then again, the game had only been out for 2 days. His phone rang. International number. He knew exactly who it was and picked up. A woman with a sweet voice spoke to him in fluent English. Fangbin answered back in English without any trouble since he'd spent time abroad before. Just like he expected, it was someone from Steam. He asked what they needed instead of giving his name first. The woman explained that Silent Hill was blowing up on their platform and they thought his studio had serious potential, so they wanted to start working together. Lisa laid out her pitch pretty smoothly, but Fangbin shut it down immediately. No plans to partner with other companies right now. She pushed back, mentioning how they'd made classics like Half-Life and Portal, saying a collaboration would benefit everyone. She asked him to at least think it over and maybe meet up to talk details. Fangbin shook his head again and politely declined, then hung up. Partnering with other companies right now was just asking for his secrets to leak. The whole thing was kind of unbelievable. One guy developing such a powerful game engine and creating such a realistic game. Better to stay behind the scenes and keep things quiet. He got back to adding the English version when Susu rushed into the room looking nervous. Tencent had just called her. Fangbin kept typing, asking what they wanted. She explained they were asking about the studio, whether it was domestic or international, how big it was, stuff like that. He asked what she told them. She waved her hand, saying she didn't reveal anything, just like he'd told her to. He praised her for that. Then she mentioned they wanted to discuss a business partnership and asked if she could help connect them. Fangbin waved his hand, shutting that down too. Susu looked shocked even though she'd seen it coming. She told Fangbin the penguins had serious money and could make them rich. Fangbin just shrugged and said money wasn't the point. He didn't like how they operated. He'd rather do his own thing. Susu backed off since her little brother could handle a project this big without needing anyone's help anymore. Fangbin warned her she'd probably get more calls from big internet companies. He told her to keep everything under wraps and turn down any business deals. Susu said she had it covered, even though she didn't really get why he hated these companies so much. She trusted him completely, though. She said she'd call Tencent back right now. Fangbin stopped her like something just hit him. He asked if she wanted to be the spokesperson for New World Studio. Susu looked confused about what that even meant. He explained he was the game dev and needed someone to talk to players for him. He'd stay behind the scenes keeping things mysterious while she handled the public stuff. Plus, she was his sister, so obviously he could trust her. Susu got excited immediately and said yes. As a streamer, she knew exactly how much attention this would bring her, especially with how huge Silent Hill was right now. Fangbin told her to do a deep dive with the Silent Hill players during her stream that night. She was totally down for whatever he needed. After that, Susu called Tencent and shut them down. Just like Fangbin predicted, employees from other major companies started calling too. She gave everyone the same answer, straight up no to everything, no wiggle room. She spent the whole day just answering phones. When she finally finished, she dropped a Weibo post saying she'd be streaming that night with the Silent Hill PT producer. The internet lost its mind. People were asking if Susu actually found the producer or if her brother did, since he got the game first. Everyone wanted to know what kind of person made such a terrifying game, joking about whether he had 6 arms or 3 heads, or how messed up in the head he must be. That one post had everyone hyped. Duyu saw the traffic spike and threw up a banner on their homepage promoting the stream for 8 p.m. that night. Between Weibo and the platform pushing it, everyone knew about the broadcast. Right at 8 p.m., Susu sat down at her computer wearing a formal suit instead of her usual casual clothes. It looked weird in her pink room, but she felt like talking to the Silent Hill producer needed to be professional. The audience didn't know it was actually her brother anyway. When she checked the backstage, she saw 200,000 viewers already waiting. The chat was going crazy asking why she hadn't started yet, telling her to hurry up, saying they had their donations ready. Susu freaked out at how many people were already there. Everyone was obviously here for the mysterious producer, since Silent Hill PT was blowing up everywhere. Before going live, she spoke into the mic asking Xiaobin if he was online and how his voice sounded. A processed voice came back saying it was clear enough. So Fengbin hung up and got ready to start the whole thing. Funny enough, he was literally just chilling in the room next door, but they still had to do it properly. Susu said, okay, ended the call, and fired up her stream. The chat went absolutely nuts the second she went live. Everyone was losing their minds wanting to see the guy who made the game, basically telling Susu to get out of the way so they could see the mystery developer. Susu jumped in trying to calm everyone down. She'd done league commentary before, so handling crazy crowds was nothing new to her. She wasn't stressed about the hype at all, but she did throw in a little complaint about how everyone kept calling the developer a dog author, which bugged her since that dog author happened to be her brother. The chat immediately called her out, reminding her that she was the one who started the whole dog author thing when she first played Silent Hill, screaming it every 5 seconds because the game scared her so bad. Susu went quiet for a second, realizing they were totally right. She used to rage at the creator non-stop while playing, not knowing it was her own brother. The whole time. That one really came back to bite her. The whole dog author nickname caught on because her gameplay videos were hilarious and the game seemed to torture her specifically, so everyone just ran with it. Nobody meant it in a bad way though, it was more like an inside joke showing how much people actually loved the game. Susu gave up and moved on, telling everyone she worked hard to set this up so they better send her some gifts. She lied without even flinching and straight up asked for donations. The viewers ate it up though, and gifts started flooding in immediately. She told them to stop after a bit, feeling kind of weird about it since it looked like she and her brother were teaming up to milk everyone for money. Then she announced she was connecting the voice chat. Fengbin was already waiting and picked up right away. They said their hellos, and the chat exploded again, roasting him for hiding his face and using a voice changer, calling the whole thing super mysterious. Susu laughed and told him what the chat was saying. Fengbin joked back that he had to hide or he'd get jumped on the street for making such a terrifying game. The audience loved it, thinking the guy was actually pretty funny. Susu asked what to call him, and he said just call him Mr. Shu. She told the viewers to drop their questions in chat, and she'd ask them for everyone. Questions started pouring in immediately. She and Fengbin had already talked about filtering out certain stuff, especially anything too specific about New World Studio, since competitors were definitely trying to dig up intel. She picked the first question, asking if his team was all Chinese. Fengbin answered confidently that, yeah, everyone was from Dragon Kingdom, and their team had some of the best talent in the gaming industry. He said their whole goal was proving that their country could make top-tier games too. The chat went wild for that answer because it really hit home. Chinese games had always gotten the short end of the stick in the industry. Big-name games were usually overpriced and underwhelming, kind of like how their football team was, though maybe slightly better than that. Now New World Studio was finally putting them on the map. Susu moved to the next question, one a ton of people were curious about since this was just a beta version, and the game wasn't even finished yet, maybe didn't even have an ending. Fengbin told everyone straight up that, yeah, the game definitely has an ending. The catch though? Even with tens of millions of downloads, nobody had actually beaten it yet, so the ending was still a mystery. The chat went nuts. People couldn't believe tens of millions of players had downloaded this thing, and they started roasting Fengbin for making such a brutal game. He just laughed it off and said it wasn't his fault. Anyone who could actually finish a horror game like this had to be a little crazy anyway. When everyone kept complaining about how hard Silent Hill was, Fengbin decided to throw them a bone and mentioned something about a new project. The stream exploded. Everyone wanted to know what was coming next. People were literally begging for anything but another horror game. Something wholesome, something relaxing, maybe even something for adults if he caught their drift. Fengbin went through the questions one by one. He explained that since Silent Hill freaked everyone out so much, the team was putting it on hold. The new game would be totally different. Warm, healing, open world, the whole deal. He was thinking about his nearly finished project, Beautiful Water World, and couldn't help grinning while he talked about it. Then someone brought up adult games again. Fengbin just casually dropped that, oh yeah, the team already made one of those, but they were keeping it for themselves. The chat lost it. People were calling him every name in the book, begging him to release it, saying they'd pay whatever. Most gamers are dudes anyway, and the idea of Silent Hill's graphics in that kind of game had everyone going crazy. Right after stirring up all that chaos, Fengbin just ended the stream. Everyone was pissed he bounced so quick, only answering a handful of questions. Someone pointed out he sounded like some pirate captain telling everyone to go find treasure or something. But even though the stream barely lasted 15 minutes, it worked. Players were hyped again and jumping back into Silent Hill, all excited about this mysterious new game. Meanwhile, there was this small-time content creator on BG named Chunbai. The guy had been grinding for over 2 years and still only had like tens of thousands of followers. He was pretty much ready to quit, but then Silent Hill dropped and everything changed for him. Chunbai wasn't wired like most people. He loved intense stuff. Scary, painful things didn't just freak him out. They got him excited. Back in school, he literally carved some girl's name into his hand to confess to her. She freaked out and told the teacher. Yeah, the dude was basically a masochist, as much as he hated admitting it. So Silent Hill? Perfect game for him. He started looking around at other content about the game. Challenge videos, Easter egg hunts, streamers overreacting to jump scares. All surface-level stuff. Nobody had made a full walkthrough because nobody had the balls to actually finish it. Chunbai figured if nobody else would do it, he would. Plus, he'd watched that stream with Susu and the developer the night before. The promise stuck with him. First 50 people to beat the game would get early access to the next one, New World. He saw his shot. Beat the game, stream the new one first, rake in views and money. So Chunbai basically lived in Silent Hill for the next few days. The whole time he was bouncing between terrified and thrilled. After getting chased by that corridor ghost more times than he could count, riding that insane high the whole way, he finally did it. He beat Silent Hill. So Chunbai got super hyped and pulled an all-nighter editing her gameplay footage, then threw it up on the crypto site. The title was something like, First Ever Complete Silent Hill PT Walkthrough. Total noob-friendly. And people lost their minds. Comments started rolling in like, wait, someone actually beat this thing? No way. And this has got to be fake. Nobody's cleared this game. Some dude even said he'd hunt them down if it was clickbait. The thing is, Chunbai's account was pretty much a nobody before this, but the timing was perfect. 4 days had passed since the game devs dropped their challenge, and literally everyone who tried had failed. Now Chunbai's claiming to be the first person ever to beat it, so obviously people swarmed the page. The video starts with Chunbai doing this intro in a surprisingly deep voice, saying she's going to show everyone how to actually beat Silent Hill. She mentions how most people either haven't finished it or are too scared to even try. But after grinding it out forever, she finally cracked it. Oh, and she edited out all the scary parts and slapped filters on everything so it wouldn't freak people out. The comments went crazy with stuff like, yo, that's so thoughtful, and perfect for those of us who don't want to get jump scared to death. So the walkthrough starts. The game begins in this dark room, back door opens by itself after a bit, standard creepy stuff. Chunbai walks through these gloomy hallways while explaining everything. The first challenge is whatever, pretty easy to skip through. Then comes the second part where there's this door that cracks open slightly, and if someone peeks inside, there's supposed to be this little ghost girl's face right there trying to scare them. But in Chunbai's video, the ghost face is covered with a smiley face sticker, which honestly made it hilarious. Comments were dying laughing like, never thought I'd be watching Silent Hill with a smile on my face, and this editing is genius. The third challenge is where things get real. Around a corner, players run into the ghost wife. In the footage, when the tall figure shows up, her face is also covered with a goofy emoji. Chunbai explains that if someone shows any fear or even backs up a single step, the wife instantly catches up and kills them on the spot. People in the comments started connecting the dots like, oh shit, that's why that streamer got wrecked by the ghost. And so the game literally punishes being scared? That's messed up. And the devs are trolling. The more someone runs, the harder she chases. Chunbai breaks down the solution, mentioning how Susu actually showed it during her playthrough. Don't be scared. Just walk straight at her and she disappears. After that, the bathroom door swings open and the whole hallway goes dark, which means it's time to go in. She adds that standing around outside like an idiot at that point just gets someone killed. By the ghost wife. Following what Susu did, Chunbai heads into the bathroom and grabs a flashlight off the floor. Through the bathroom mirror, it reveals the players actually controlling the husband, the actual murderer, which is a massive clue. Then Chunbai explains the fetus is super sensitive to light, and shining the flashlight on it even for a second makes it cry. Once it cries, the wife in the hallway gets attracted and comes running, which basically means game over. After hearing all this, everyone watching started piecing it together. So Chunbai just calmly said something and walked out of the bathroom. The hallway was completely dark except for his flashlight, but the thing barely lit up anything beyond a few feet in front of him. Everything else just stayed pitch black, and the whole vibe felt super lonely and suffocating. The chat started freaking out because most people watching had never seen what came after the bathroom part, and they were all complaining about how they'd have to deal with this crappy flashlight for the rest of the game. Chunbai just kept it cool and started moving forward with the flashlight, and that's when the fourth cycle kicked in. This level was totally different from before since the entire corridor was so dark nobody could see anything without the flashlight. Then these clicking sounds started happening, like footsteps or something, and they were actually pretty clear once people paid attention. The sounds would pop up randomly from different directions, front, back, left, right, wherever. Chunbai explained that players had to stay away from the sounds because if they got closer, it meant the wife was coming, and nobody wanted to know what happened after that. He mentioned how he got jump scared by her a bunch of times before finally figuring out the pattern. Everyone in chat was impressed, saying the game developer was creative as hell for hiding clues like that, and they couldn't believe Chunbai actually figured it out through trial and error. In the video, Chunbai was moving around, walking forward and back, stopping sometimes to listen for the high heel sounds and adjusting his position based on that. Eventually, he made it to the main entrance again. He told everyone that watching the video was one thing, but actually playing and hearing those high heels randomly appearing in the game would give anyone serious chills. But then he got all hyped up and said it was incredibly thrilling, that the whole life or death feeling was amazing, and everyone should try it. The chat thought he was insane, saying there was no way they'd play after being terrified by the earlier levels, and some people genuinely started wondering if something was wrong with him mentally. But then again, it made sense that someone would have to be pretty fearless to beat a game like this. The door opened again and Chunbai entered the 5th cycle. The dark corridor suddenly lit up, but instead of normal white light, everything was bathed in this creepy dark red glow. The paintings on the walls had changed into these disturbing eyes that stared at the player from every direction, and the pupils would literally follow wherever the player moved. The whole corridor felt even more unsettling than before. Then the wife's crying echoed through the hallway again, way louder this time like it was exploding right next to the player's ears, and she was mixing crying with this creepy laughing sound. Chat completely lost it, asking why this ghost kept crying and laughing, and saying those eyes were freaking them out. Everyone could tell something intense was about to happen, because the game stopped being subtle and just cranked the horror atmosphere to maximum. Chunbai mentioned this was the 5th cycle, the one where players died the most, and it was the final and hardest obstacle to get through. Even he sounded a bit nervous talking about it. He explained that the wife in this part was completely unhinged, and if players hung around in the hallway too long or just rushed straight to the exit, she'd chase them down and kill them. So the key was finding somewhere to hide, and as he said that, he started running forward quickly. So Chunbai's freaking out, and that's got everyone else on edge too. The chat's blowing up with people saying the corridor's too narrow, there's nowhere to hide, and just watching this is stressing them out. Chunbai bolts into the bathroom. The bathtub that was empty before is now completely filled with thick, nasty-looking blood that's still oozing out everywhere. Everyone watching knows what's coming next. Chunbai's talking fast now, explaining that diving into this bloodbath is the only way to dodge the ghost wife. Then he actually does it. Just jumps right in and makes sure he's completely under. The chat goes crazy. People are saying it looks disgusting and wondering what that would even feel like. From the first-person view, it looks like being surrounded by blood on all sides. But the real experience is way worse. The motion-sensing gear kicks in and recreates everything. The nasty smell, the cold feeling, all of it. Once Chunbai's fully submerged, this creepy woman's laugh starts getting louder and closer. Then this tall, twitchy ghost figure shows up next to the bathtub. It's the ghost wife, and she's looking around. Chunbai's explaining that staying quiet is crucial right now. But there's more. The little ghost girl's about to show up in the worst way possible. Something starts drifting across the water toward Chunbai's face, then suddenly flips around. It's the little girl's head, just floating there like a beach ball, pale and torn up with this creepy smile. Her face is right up against his, maybe a few centimeters away. The stream has Chunbai's face pixelated, so viewers only see this blurry, scary face. But even that's enough to freak people out. The chat's losing it, saying even the censored version is terrifying, and they can only imagine how bad the real thing is. Chunbai keeps narrating, but his voice is shaking now even though he usually loves this stuff. He's explaining that the little girl just scares people but won't actually hurt them. The real danger is the ghost wife standing right there. The key is not making any sound because the second someone screams, the wife will hear it, drag them out, and beat the hell out of them. Chunbai's saying nobody wants that to happen, and the fear in his voice is real. The whole scene burns into everyone's mind. The chat's going off about how terrifying it is, how messed up the game developer must be, how clever and deadly each level is, and how impressive it is that Chunbai's making it through. People are saying they would have screamed by now for sure. Chunbai stays completely still, hand over his mouth, not making a single sound even with the ghost girl's face right there. After a few seconds, she looks bored and fades away. The ghost wife hangs around a bit longer but eventually gives up and leaves too. Once they're gone, Chunbai climbs out of the tub and heads back to the hallway. He's drenched in red liquid, feeling cold and heavy, the motion suit recreating every sensation perfectly. He mentions this is the last cycle and opens the door again, Stepping into the 6th round, the lighting in the corridor snapped back to normal, like everything had reset to the start of the game. Pure White kept walking down the hall, mentioning how the scariest parts were behind them now and the story was wrapping up. The radio crackled to life again with that deep voice. But this time, it wasn't about some murder case. Instead, the host started laying out a different story. The guy lost his job and started drinking heavily to cope with it. His wife had to pick up shifts as a supermarket cashier to make ends meet, and apparently the manager there had a thing for her. The husband knew what was going on but pretended not to see it. As his wife's belly grew, something started eating at him. The doubt got worse and worse until he couldn't even look at his daughter without wondering if she was really his. Then one night, after another round of heavy drinking, he finally snapped and made his choice. That radio message hit the viewers like a truck. The chat exploded with people piecing it together. The husband thought his wife was cheating and decided to do something about it. Some viewers figured the wife probably wasn't even cheating, that the husband was just paranoid and drunk out of his mind, connecting dots that weren't there. Chunbai broke it down plainly. The wife probably didn't cheat. The husband was just losing it from all the drinking and suspicion. So one day he chose to kill. Then, Chunbai walked the character to the corner of the corridor. When viewers saw where this was heading and heard what the radio was implying, the realization crept in cold. The male protagonist was about to hang himself. The chat went wild. Some said the guy deserved it for destroying his family over paranoia. Others argued maybe the wife actually did cheat. But most agreed that even if she did, the kids didn't deserve any of it. There was no defending what the protagonist did. The character stepped onto the stool, positioned the rope, and kicked the stool away. Choking sounds filled the audio as his legs thrashed in the air before going still. The screen faded to black, and text appeared. Produced by New World Studios. Game over. Thank you for playing. The walkthrough ended there, but viewers sat stunned, unable to shake off what they'd just watched. Pure White's video blew up fast. He posted it across Weibo and Tencent, and within minutes the view count shot past 1 million. The comments flooded in. People couldn't believe how intense the later loops got compared to the already terrifying early ones. They praised how well made the game was for a free demo, with every plot point clearly explained. But most of the discussion circled back to the protagonist being an absolute monster, unemployed, alcoholic, and ultimately murdering his family over suspected infidelity. People called him disgusting trash who got what he deserved. Some viewers connected with how grounded the story felt, noting that tragedies like this actually happen in real life, which made it hit even harder. Others gave props to Pure White himself for having the guts to push through the increasingly terrifying segments, especially that silent stare-down with the ghost girl at the end. Foreign players chimed in calling him courageous. People congratulated him for being the first to beat Silent Hill and getting early access to the next game as a reward. Despite being short, the game's puzzles were genuinely tough to crack, which made the accomplishment feel that much bigger. So clearing the level meant dying over and over again to that female ghost, and Chunbai probably got killed by the ghost wife like 100 times before finally making it through, which honestly takes some serious dedication. One morning, Susu came bursting into Fengbin's bedroom while he was still knocked out, yelling at him to wake up. Fengbin groggily asked what was going on while rubbing his eyes. Pretty annoyed since he'd been grinding on code for days and just wanted to sleep in for once, but Susu wasn't having it. Silent Hill had been blowing up lately and racked up tens of millions of surprise points for him, which was more than enough to create a whole new massive VR game from scratch. The game files for Subnautica were already sitting on his computer thanks to those surprise points doing most of the heavy lifting, saving him years of work since coding and designing everything himself would have taken forever. That's why Fengbin decided to burn through more surprise points and let the simulator handle the grunt work, though he still needed to tweak the details of Subworld to make it fit better with the current world setting, which is what had him so busy lately. Susu told him someone uploaded a full walkthrough of Silent Hill PT the night before, and it was already everywhere online, then shoved her phone in his face showing Chunbai's completion video. Fengbin skimmed through it real quick and laughed, saying someone actually beat it already, and that this Pure White person must be pretty brave, or maybe just a total masochist. Susu gave him a look and asked if he should really be talking about his loyal fans like that. But Fengbin just shrugged and said he was being honest since he made the game and knew damn well that most people who could beat it were probably masochists. He got up and checked the Steam backend to see how Silent Hill was doing achievement-wise, then got surprised seeing over 1,000 people had already beaten it, with most of them being domestic players. Susu freaked out asking how there were suddenly so many people, and Fengbin noticed there was like a 7 or 8 hour gap between first and second place, meaning Pure White definitely cleared it first and everyone else just used his guide to cheese through it. Susu said that made sense since Fengbin promised the first 50 people would get early access to new games, so obviously everyone would grind hard to squeeze into that top 50 once the guide dropped. Fengbin agreed with her, And then Susu asked if they should contact the top 50 players now. Fangbin asked why he would even do that, which caught Susu off guard since she thought he promised them access and wondered if his new game wasn't done yet. Though she didn't really get how long game development actually takes, but trusted him anyway since he said he'd pull it off. Fangbin smiled and reminded her the original condition was achieving a perfect completion, not just any completion. Susu looked confused, asking if Pure White's run wasn't perfect, but Fangbin laughed and pointed out that if the main character dies, how could that possibly be considered perfect? So what players got so far was just the normal ending at best. Susu's eyes went wide, realizing he was saying, there's an ending where the protagonist actually survives. Fangbin confirmed that was exactly right, which left Susu stunned for a second before she brought up how the male protagonist killed his wife and kids because of paranoia, making him a terrifying villain. So designing a survival ending for him seemed morally sketchy, even in a virtual world, and would probably get him flamed hard by netizens who might even send him knives or funeral wreaths. Susu had watched the walkthrough herself, so she knew the story pretty well, and in her mind, a villain like that should get a tragic ending for it to feel right. Fangbin just smiled at her concerns and joked that the netizens didn't know his actual address anyway, so how would they even send him a knife? Then asked who said the male lead had to be a villain in the first place. That caught Susu completely off guard, and when she asked if he wasn't, Fangbin just smiled and shook his head without explaining further. His mysterious attitude only made Susu more curious about what he actually meant. So Fangbin's sitting there thinking, maybe there's some crazy secret buried in this game. He's smiling to himself, talking about how his next game's almost done, and he's just waiting to see who's going to be the first person to actually get the perfect ending. The guy's genuinely excited about it. Right now, though, Fangbin's not planning to do anything about it. But the players? They're losing their minds. Pure White drops his complete walkthrough video, and immediately the comments section explodes with people telling them to hurry up. Someone already beat Silent Hill and everyone's demanding New World Studios to make their next move. People are flooding the video comments and sliding into Chunbai's DMs, asking if he's heard anything from the New World team yet. Chunbai keeps telling everyone he hasn't gotten any notification, which honestly confuses him, because he knows for sure his walkthrough was the first one on the internet. He should definitely be in the top 50 players who finished the game, so why is New World being so quiet about it? When people realize they can't get answers through normal channels, they switch tactics and start spamming Susu's Weibo instead. She notices her post suddenly has over 10,000 comments, just waves of people complaining about the slow updates. The overseas players can't access Weibo, so they're leaving negative reviews on the Steam page just to get someone's attention. Susu's staring at her phone telling Xiaobin that all the update pressure's landing on her now. But she's also kind of amazed her Weibo's getting this much traffic. Fangbin's just casually sipping his coffee, saying it shows people actually care about their product. Tells her to respond based on what they talked about earlier. She's joking around saying she feels like some popular celebrity with all this feedback. Fangbin laughs and suggests she should register a Twitter account since they're apparently just getting started. Susu's confused about why she'd need that, but he explains it'd make it easier to talk to overseas customers, so they stop bombing his product page with complaints. That gets Susu all excited about becoming an international superstar. So she grabs her phone and types out a post saying New World Studio received everyone's concerns and promises to follow through. But then she drops the bomb that the producer meant completing the game in the true, complete sense, not the version where any character sacrifices themselves. Basically, the male protagonist has to survive for it to count as the ultimate win. The tweet blows up immediately with people surprised and throwing out theories. Some people even start questioning the game designer's values, which makes Susu mutter something about how regular people can't appreciate her brother's genius game design. Following Fangbin's instructions, she posts another message telling players to pay attention to details, specifically mentioning there's a small creature everywhere in the game that'll lead them to the answer if they follow it. She wishes everyone good luck. After posting, Susu stretches and laughs to herself about how fun it is creating puzzles for players, saying she feels like some great demon king controlling everything. Fangbin glances over thinking he's supposed to be the demon king here, wondering why she's getting so hyped about it. Those two Weibo posts trigger an even bigger discussion, though, and word spreads that Silent Hill has a hidden perfect ending. This news completely blindsides all the players. Chunbai's watching Susu's posts closely, and he's shocked to learn about this hidden perfect ending because he's definitely the player who's spent the most time on Silent Hill and completed most of the achievements. He should know every detail of this game inside and out by now. But somehow there's this outcome nobody knows about. He decides he needs to jump back into the game right away to figure out what secrets he's been missing. So Pure White fires up the game again. The perfect ending discovery. Back in that dark room, Pure White scoped out the place while moving through it. The guy had been there a million times and knew every corner like the back of his hand. Logic said nothing should slip past him. Then he remembered Susu's hint about those tiny things scattered everywhere. Probably just some random everyday stuff. And if she specifically called them tiny, they definitely weren't anything obvious. While Pure White was thinking it over, his eyes caught some little bugs skittering across the floor. Cockroaches. Something clicked in his head right then. Less than an hour after Susu dropped her post, Pure White uploaded his second video, Pure White's Guide to the Perfect Ending in Silent Hill. Just like before, the new video blew up with viewers going crazy in the comments. People were losing their minds that he'd already cracked the perfect ending. The guy was first to beat the game, and now first to unlock the perfect ending too. Everyone jumped on the video immediately. Pure White's voice came through sounding pumped up, talking about how he thought he had the whole game figured out until Susu's hint made him realize he'd barely scratched the surface. Thanks to her pointer, he managed to trigger the perfect ending and was ready to show everyone how. Pure White loaded up the game and explained that Susu was right about those tiny creatures being everywhere. Following them would eventually crack the mystery wide open. The key was those cockroaches everyone naturally ignored without thinking twice. He walked through the passage breaking it down. Keeping track of these bugs during exploration would reveal the clues needed for the perfect ending. Starting from the second cycle, when the door swung open automatically, several insects would scurry out from the door cracks at that exact moment. Viewers spotted the bugs in the footage just like he described. People had noticed these details before when watching other playthroughs, but nobody gave them a second thought since everyone was too busy being terrified to care about some tiny insects. Pure White followed the bugs as they disappeared into a wall crack where a torn piece of paper was lying. That was the crucial hidden clue right there. He crouched down and grabbed the torn page, and everyone focused on the tattered photo showing 4 words on the back: "Do not easily believe." Viewers started connecting the dots, realizing the producer's attention to detail was insane. Nobody expected cockroaches would be the key to finding clues. Pure White explained that collecting all the photo fragments would unravel the mystery to the perfect ending. In the first 5 cycles, a cockroach would show up each time, and following it was the move. He walked everyone through the locations. Some fragments tucked behind the bathroom mirror, others stuffed in wall cracks, hidden so well they'd be impossible to find without the clues. Once he got the rhythm down, though, finding them got way easier. Pretty soon he'd collected everything and entered the 6th cycle. Pure White announced he'd found all the fragments and it was time to solve the mystery. He crouched down and started piecing the fragments together like a jigsaw puzzle. Everyone stared at the screen, not wanting to miss a thing. The scattered pieces finally came together into one complete family photo. The guy standing there with his pregnant wife and their daughter, all 3 of them smiling. They looked happy, nothing seemed off between them. But then someone flipped the photo over and found writing on the back that read, "Don't trust the man on the radio. Kill that thing." Chunbai looked at what they'd found and said they had a family photo and instructions to destroy something. He wondered what would happen if they actually did it, then walked straight over to the tape recorder sitting on the counter. The thing was still playing, going on about how the guy lost his job and turned to drinking, how his wife had to work at a supermarket to keep things going. Before it could finish, Chunbai grabbed the recorder and smashed it on the ground. The thing exploded into pieces with a loud bang, and right after that, this crazy scream echoed through the whole place. People started freaking out, asking if that was a ghost screaming, saying it sounded exactly like the voice from the recording. The screaming died down pretty quick, though. After breaking the radio, Chunbai kept moving forward and noticed something weird. The noose that had been hanging in the hallway with the stool underneath it was just gone. People started commenting that the whole place seemed brighter too, way more light coming through the windows than before. The hallway was still tight and cramped, but it wasn't as dark and creepy anymore, not nearly as cold either. Chunbai told everyone they could feel the changes happening around them, and breaking that recorder meant they could finally end the loop and get out of this place for real. He walked up to the door, opened it, and light poured in. Instead of another endless hallway, there was an actual street outside. The sky looked heavy with clouds. The streets were empty except for a few streetlights flickering here and there. People got excited, couldn't believe they actually made it out, kept talking about how realistic everything looked, though some admitted it was pretty creepy. The whole scene was dead quiet, covered in thick fog. Someone mentioned that's probably why they called it Silent Hill, and Chunbai said if there was a sequel, the adventure would continue out here. The character walked into the fog, and then text popped up on screen saying it was made by New World Studio, congratulating players on getting the perfect ending in the demo version, adding that the story wasn't over yet. Chunbai wrapped things up and figured people might be confused about the ending, so he broke it down for them. The main guy wasn't actually a serial killer. All those accusations came from the radio. A male radio host first reported the murders, then later explained why the protagonist supposedly did it, and at the end, that same voice tried to get the guy to hang himself. Everything pointing to the protagonist being a murderer came from that radio. Nothing was actually confirmed. Then Chunbai pointed to the hidden clues they found. The family photo showed all three of them smiling and happy, which meant the guy loved his family. The message on the back told them not to trust the man on the radio, meaning everything broadcast was probably lies. And there was more to the story about what happened to his wife and kid. As Chunbai laid it all out, people watching the stream started putting it together. They realized they'd been played, that they only thought the protagonist was a murderer because the radio kept saying it, and they just believed it without questioning anything. Everyone felt fooled, couldn't believe they'd been playing what they thought was some twisted killer this whole time. People were calling it genius, saying if they hadn't found those hidden clues, they would have kept thinking the guy was a psycho the entire time. The crowd went nuts watching the plot unfold, while Bai Chun kept talking through the stream. He dropped another theory. Maybe there was never any ghost wife or creepy little girl in the house to begin with. The real ghost was just the radio messing with everyone's head. To test it out, he beat the game perfectly first, then started fresh. This time around, he skipped all the hidden clues and the whole planned route. He walked straight up and smashed that annoying radio right off the bat. The second he did, the creepy hallway vibes vanished and actual sunlight came through the windows. He opened the door and boom, normal gray street outside, perfect ending unlocked. Everyone watching lost their minds. People couldn't believe the game was already over, and that smashing the radio gave the best ending possible. The chat exploded with people laughing about how they'd been running scared from the ghost lady when the solution was that simple the whole time. Bai Chun was hyped, explaining how destroying the radio stopped the ghosts and the looping hallway from even showing up. The whole loop and the ghost were just illusions the radio created, and breaking it brought everything back to normal. Turns out the game could be beaten in under a minute by just smashing the radio immediately. The audience was blown away and confused at the same time. People were amazed by the plot design, kicking themselves for getting chased around by a ghost that was basically caused by a busted radio. Some viewers got philosophical about it, saying the game showed how going in the wrong direction makes all the effort pointless. Even the people who didn't want to admit it had to give props to the writer. Bai Chun wrapped up his perfect walkthrough stream, saying he'd shared everything he understood about the game. He announced he was officially the biggest fan of New World Studio now. For him, Silent Hill PT wasn't just a game. He called it straight-up art. He promised to support whatever New World put out next. No questions asked. His complete walkthrough video blew up even bigger than the earlier ones. This time, people weren't just talking about how scary it was. They were diving deep into the story secrets. Players were impressed by how much the game packed into just half an hour with two totally different paths. On the surface, it looked like basic revenge horror. Husband kills wife and kid, their ghosts come back for payback. The wife even screams at the guy at the end. But digging deeper into the hidden plot showed the protagonist was actually innocent and everyone got played by the radio's BS. Everything seemed real, but the real villain was hidden the whole time. The game reminded people of real life, where media twists facts for clicks and people end up attacking innocent folks while the actual culprits hide in the shadows laughing. Pretty messed up when someone thought about it. But that's what made the game so good. Once players figured out the secrets, the whole thing became smooth sailing. No more scary parts, just break the radio and move on. Even people who hate horror could finish it easily. It gave that light bulb moment feeling. Who actually killed the wife and daughter would probably stay a mystery until the full game dropped, though nobody knew if that would even happen. The perfect ending videos went viral worldwide again with players praising it like crazy. People ran out of words to describe how good it was, saying the game pushed gaming as art to the limit. They called it the real deal for educational entertainment, teaching players to think for themselves instead of getting manipulated. Some fans said the only game that could top Silent Hill would be New World's next release. A few people even came back to apologize for their earlier negative reviews. The whole thing kicked off when people started wondering if they could still change their ratings. Something about the vibe got everyone hyped, and tons of players who'd trashed the game before actually went back on Steam and flipped their reviews to positive. Silent Hill's rating basically exploded overnight from 70% to 99%, which was pretty insane. Back at their place, Susu was glued to her phone watching Chunbai's walkthrough video of Silent Hill. The second she finished it, she rushed over to find Feng Bin, who was still grinding away at his computer. She told him she'd totally misjudged him and had no idea he was that talented, going on about how his plot design was absolutely incredible. Then she tried to pull him into a hug like some proud older sister. Feng Bin immediately pushed her off and called her a siscon, then asked if anyone had actually gotten the perfect ending yet. Susu didn't even care that he'd shoved her away and just smiled, saying, yeah, that pure white guy managed to do it again and how he's always the fastest to beat these games. Feng Bin nodded and said he figured as much since he'd already dropped enough hints on Weibo, so now he had to keep his promise. He pulled up the Steam backend to check the numbers. Turns out nearly 200,000 players had beaten the Silent Hill challenge, which made Feng Bin grin. Susu was shocked at first, but then realized it made sense since everyone knew the trick now. Once players figured out they could just break a radio and skip all the scary stuff, the game became a cakewalk for pretty much anyone. Feng Bin started sorting through the data and put together a list of the top 53 players who got the best ending. About a third of them were from mainland China, and the rest were scattered everywhere from Japan and South Korea to Denmark, the US, and even some spots in Africa. After memorizing all their account info, he planned to message each of them personally. That's when Susu came back over. She asked if she could try his new game first, putting on this whiny voice. Feng Bin asked her straight up if she was one of those 50 people, and when she said no, he basically told her to forget it. She tried pulling the older sister card, but he shut that down, saying even a wife wouldn't get special treatment. She looked completely lost at that comment. Seeing her all bummed out, Feng Bin backtracked and said he was joking, telling her she could obviously play first since she's his sister and he'd install it on her computer that night. Her whole mood flipped instantly, and she got all excited, calling him the best little brother and planted a kiss on his face. He complained about the drool and wiped it off while she asked if the new game was another horror game. He reminded her he'd already said it wasn't during their video call, adding that constantly making horror games would be brutal for players. She seemed relieved, but then brought up something he'd mentioned before about some adult game, asking if he was serious about that. Feng Bin gave her this mysterious smile and asked if she wanted to try that kind of game too. Even Susu, who usually had thick skin, turned red and quickly said no while backing off. She told him good luck with the new game and said she was looking forward to it before heading back to her room, planning to finish Silent Hill and post about streaming the new game later to boost her viewership. Once Susu left, Feng Bin started messaging the top 50 players on Steam. He hit up Pure White first since that player had cleared the game before anyone else. The response came back immediately, which caught Feng Bin off guard. The guy said he'd been online waiting the whole time. Feng Bin figured these were some seriously dedicated fans of New World, so he typed back congratulating Pure White on being the first to get the perfect completion and told him he could now try out their next game called Subnautica. The name caught Pure White's attention since it sounded like the next game might be set in the ocean or something. Pure White quickly thanked him, super grateful for the opportunity. Feng Bin told him he'd send over the Subnautica files through a cloud drive right away, but made it clear not to share them with anyone else. Pure White agreed without hesitation, promising to keep it to himself, but then asked if streaming the game would be cool. Feng Bin was totally down for it, since he really wanted people to check out his game and spread the word. Pure White wasted no time and Feng Bin sent him the cloud link with a demo version of Subnautica. Pure White got hyped, rubbed his hands together, and started downloading immediately. While that was going, he jumped on Weibo and posted about the new game being called Subnautica. Pure White's follower count had blown up recently from under 10,000 to over 1 million, because his Silent Hill videos had been going viral the past couple days. Once he posted about Subnautica, the comments started flooding in with people getting excited about a possible ocean adventure game and begging him to stream it as soon as the download finished. Other players who didn't make the top 50 were pretty jealous, but figured they could at least watch through live streams. Right after Pure White's post, Susu, who had also beaten Silent Hill, announced she'd be streaming the new game that night. Everyone lost their minds asking how she got into the top 50 since she was known for being scared of everything. Susu joked back, saying there was definitely some shady deal involved, which made people joke about her being the developer's girlfriend or having some kind of inside connection. The hype kept building as both streamers announced their streams, and phrases like New World Studios' new game and Subnautica started trending on Weibo, showing how badly players wanted new content. Meanwhile, other streamers like Sayoki and Decima were stressing because they knew their viewer numbers were about to tank hard. Silent Hill hadn't hit them as bad, since it was horror, and most streamers were too scared to play it. But Subnautica was different, and would definitely pull viewers away. On his end, Feng Bin spent about an hour and a half messaging all 50 top players privately, sending each one a free Subnautica demo and reminding them not to share it around. He wasn't too worried though, since he'd already built in a hidden program that would automatically delete all the game files if anyone tried copying or moving them. Feng Bin wasn't naive, and knew he needed to protect himself even if he wasn't trying to screw anyone over. Across the world at Valve Corporation in the States, employees were hanging out during lunch talking about the perfect Silent Hill playthrough videos going around. One older balding guy mentioned how he never would have thought of those strategies and praised the game's graphics and story. Another employee agreed and said Silent Hill might end up being Game of the Year at TGA, which was basically the Oscars of gaming sponsored by all the big companies like Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo, and Valve. Someone else jumped in saying he didn't think so, which made everyone wonder what game could possibly be better than Silent Hill. The employee confirmed there was something even better out there. Someone brought up how the upcoming game from New World seemed pretty similar to what they were discussing. Another person remembered the project team had sent someone to talk with New World about working together. Turned out New World shot them down flat, said they weren't interested in cooperating. Made sense, though. When a studio's sitting on a game engine that powerful, they're not exactly looking to share. While everyone kept talking, this young guy sat at his desk completely focused on his screen. Next thing anyone knew, his eyes went wide and he started yelling for everyone to come over. Apparently, someone from New World had just messaged him saying he'd made it into the top 50 players with perfect runs. They were sending him a demo of their new game. The whole office turned to look at him, everyone looking pretty shocked. People started congratulating him, telling him he needed to let the director know immediately. The director showed up pretty quick with a few others trailing behind. Even though the original announcement happened on the Chinese platform Douyu, word had gotten around everywhere by now. Valve had heard about it and told their employees to go hard on the game, promising bonuses to anyone who cracked the top 50. The money definitely motivated people because some employees actually pulled it off. Director walked in asking what was going on. John, the employee who'd gotten the message, said he was downloading the new game, mentioned it was called Subnautica. The director thought about the name for a second, figured the story probably took place on the ocean, guessed it might be pirate-themed, since that's usually what works for ocean games. John jumped right in agreeing, said the pirate idea sounded great. The director seemed pleased, told John to swing by finance later to grab his bonus. John thanked him, then suggested the director should try the game first. The director agreed and started putting on the motion-sensing gear, said he wanted to see what made this New World game so special. He mentioned how outdoor modeling was way harder than indoor stuff. Everyone in game development knew that. How some games looked amazing inside buildings but fell apart. The second character stepped outside. Honestly, part of him hoped Subnautica would have some issues since the competition was brutal. Once the director had the gear on and jumped into the VR world, everyone gathered around waiting to hear what he thought. The guy who'd been talking non-stop suddenly went completely quiet, just stood there, frozen. The employees glanced at each other, confused about what was happening. After a while, someone finally asked how the game was. That seemed to snap the director out of it, and he slowly pulled off the helmet. That's when everyone noticed tears streaming down his face. Nobody knew what to say. Everyone just stood there, stunned. Eventually, the director broke the silence himself, asked if they knew why he was crying. He explained the game's realism was insane, felt even more intense than Silent Hill. Then he said something heavier, that they'd probably never catch up to New World Studio. Called them an insurmountable mountain blocking the path forward. Hearing that definitely brought the mood down for everyone. The director waved his hand and told everyone to try it themselves. So the employees took turns, and every single one of them ended up with the same reaction. Just this weird, heavy silence. The whole office felt suffocating, like all the air had been sucked out. Seeing competitors working with technology that advanced hit different, like a chess master going up against a computer and realizing there's just no winning. Finally, the director pulled himself together, clapped his hands, and told everyone to snap out of it. Said sure, they weren't at that level yet, but they could still learn from what New World was doing. He gave orders to stick with the plan from before. Some people would play through Subnautica while others analyzed the data. Hopefully they'd find something useful. Even just a little bit would help. Everyone got to work. First step was making copies of the game so they could study it properly. So the eldest brother suddenly had this thought pop into his head. John shook his head and told everyone the game didn't need an activation code, that it could just launch straight up. The leader wasn't buying it though, like something felt off. Usually companies throw in activation codes to stop people from pirating their stuff, so how's anyone supposed to play without one? Why would New World just casually hand out a game that wasn't even released yet, without worrying about it getting leaked everywhere? The whole thing seemed like a scam. Maybe there was some hidden anti-theft thing going on. The boss told Darren to check if there were any security measures hiding in the game. Darren walked over to the computer and started poking around. After hammering away at the keyboard for a bit, he turned around and said there didn't seem to be any anti-piracy stuff in the files. The director found that pretty weird but trusted Darren's skills since the guy was a legit hacker with a solid reputation even before joining Valve. Whatever, the other side was making things easy for them, so the director waved his hand and told them to start copying. Darren nodded and was about to get started when a dialogue box suddenly popped up on screen saying, "My child, you have disappointed me," in both Chinese and English, with this really sarcastic emoji next to it. Darren's stomach dropped because he knew something bad was about to happen. Before he could even react, the screen flickered and all the Subnautica data just vanished. His face went completely white and he stammered something to the director. The director looked up asking what was going on, and Darren had to tell him the game file was gone. The director practically jumped out of his chair and rushed over, frantically clicking around to confirm it was really gone. He demanded to know what happened, and Darren explained the game probably had a self-destruct thing that automatically deleted files when someone tried to mess with them. The director lost it, yelling at Darren about how he said there weren't any mechanisms like that. Darren fired back saying it wasn't his fault. that the mechanism was hidden way better than anything he'd seen before. The director wasn't having it, though, calling him useless and saying he was just making excuses. Darren begged for another shot and sat back down to try recovering the files. After a while, he gave up, saying he tried everything but couldn't find them. The director asked about the cloud backup and Darren checked, but those files were gone too. The director almost passed out right there and his coworkers had to hold him up. They finally got their hands on this game and it disappeared in minutes before they could even play it properly. After calming down a bit, the director sighed and said he didn't expect Microsoft's methods to get this sophisticated. One employee quietly mentioned that the New World development team was supposedly all Chinese, not Microsoft. The director just sneered at that, saying there's no way China could develop a game with graphics like that and hidden self-destruct mechanisms, betting his head on it being Microsoft behind everything. The employee shut up real quick after that. The whole room went dead silent with this heavy atmosphere hanging over everyone. Eventually, John whispered asking if they'd still get their bonuses even though the game was toast. Meanwhile, other big companies were eyeing Subnautica too, but none of their teams cracked the top 50, so they decided to just try buying it instead. Like this guy Chunbai was downloading the game when Tencent called asking him to make an extra copy, offering to pay for it obviously. Chunbai straight up refused and hung up quick. But that was just the start because soon Pig Farm, Zulong, and Hammy Games all called with the same pitch, wanting a copy of Subnautica. Chunbai turned them all down though, since he'd become a total New World fanboy by then, and everyone kept telling him not to upload it, so doing it anyway just felt wrong. So this guy running New World Studios wasn't about to let anyone mess with his game. Tencent had been hitting up content creators to copy the game, and when one of their employees called up the manager saying some creator named Chunbai was backing out and wouldn't take their money, the manager just sighed and told them to move on to someone in the top 50 players instead. Tencent had been trying to buy out New World Studios for a while now, and after Susu turned them down, they'd been scrambling to find where the studio was actually located. Thing is, they couldn't find anything, which was weird because a studio making games this advanced should have left some kind of trail. So they gave up on that and decided to just develop their own version of the game instead. Since Pure White wouldn't play ball, they figured they'd find someone who would. They reached out to another top 50 player and offered him 10 grand just to copy the game. For the player, it seemed like easy money, so obviously he agreed. But the second he hit the copy button, this dialogue box popped up on his screen saying, "Kid, I'm so disappointed," with this ridiculous panda emoji. Then the screen flickered and the whole game just disappeared. The player freaked out and immediately called Tencent, telling them the game was gone. The staff figured out pretty quick that New World had built in some protection program that automatically deleted the game if it detected someone trying to copy it. The player was losing it because he'd just downloaded the game and hadn't even played it yet, and now it was gone because of what they told him to do. The staff member told him to hold on while they figured something out. When they came back, they had this plan where the player would sue New World for putting malware on his computer. The player thought that was insane, but the staff insisted it could work since technically New World did install something on his computer. Some Tencent leader thought this would force New World out into the open, but the player wasn't interested in going to court over this whole mess. He'd already agreed not to share the game files with New World, and now he was supposed to break that promise and sue them? Plus, he hadn't really lost anything major and wasn't even sure he'd win. The Tencent rep basically told him that if he wasn't going to cooperate, they couldn't help him with his losses. The player couldn't believe they were just ditching him after getting him into this situation, but the staff member said it wasn't their problem and hung up on him. The player got screwed over pretty hard, no money and no game. Turns out this wasn't even a one-time thing. Companies like NetEase, 370, Konami, and Nintendo had all tried the same approach with other top 50 players, and everyone ended up in the same boat. One international player who got tricked by Konami into deleting his game went online to rant about both Konami and New World. But instead of getting sympathy, people just roasted him in the comments, saying he could trash Konami all he wanted but had no right to drag New World into it. Most people thought New World's protection system was actually pretty smart, and the guy basically got what he deserved for trying to betray them in the first place. The rewritten story. So instead of feeling bad for the player, everyone online just started cracking up about the whole thing. A bunch of game companies got together and basically forced almost half the players to delete their accounts. The players just had to take it since there was nobody they could really complain to. That's what happens when someone breaks their word. Right at 8 p.m., Susu finished eating and sat down at her computer like clockwork. Before she even went live, 300,000 people had already packed into her chat room, and more kept showing up. She looked at all those viewers and thought about how this new game was pulling in crowds almost as big as League of Legends tournaments. Pretty wild. She cleared her throat and greeted everyone good evening. But before she could say anything else, the chat just exploded with people telling her to skip the talk and jump straight into the game. Everyone wanted to see what New World's latest thing was all about. That kind of bummed her out a bit. Back in the day, at least some people tuned in because they actually liked her, even if they weren't into her voice. Now it felt like she was just there to show off the game and nothing else. But whatever. As long as the money kept coming in, she wasn't going to complain too much. She told everyone all right, and started putting on the VR headset. While getting the sensor suit on, she mentioned she'd gotten some info from the New World people about this game called Subnautica. Basically, it's set in the future where the spaceship crashes during a space trip. The player's an astronaut who makes it to an escape pod and lands on this planet that's completely covered in water. The whole point is just to survive there. The chat started buzzing right away. Some people were hyped about the futuristic vibe. Others were surprised the entire game happened underwater instead of on the ocean surface. Most ocean games stick to the surface, so having everything underwater was pretty unusual. Susu fired up the program. Everything went dark first, then some text popped up saying, "Produced by New World Studio." The screen flashed and things started getting clearer. She found herself standing in this small white room. Right when she was about to look around, the floor started shaking like crazy and she could barely keep her balance. Then this urgent voice came through saying the Aurora was making an emergency landing in 5 seconds, and everyone in the escape pods needed to buckle up because the hatches were about to blow. She got nervous real quick and spotted a chair bolted down in front of her. She rushed over and sat down, and these seatbelts just automatically wrapped around and locked her in place. She thought that was pretty cool how it fastened itself. Then this massive bang went off. The whole space she was in shot off the ground and suddenly she felt completely weightless. Through the transparent floor under her feet, she could see this huge blue ocean getting closer and closer, like she was about to slam right into it. Her heart was absolutely pounding. Another huge boom blasted through her ears, then everything went black while she yelled out in panic. In the darkness, the weightless feeling stopped, but everything was still spinning hard. She sat there, patting her chest, trying to catch her breath and calm down. The whole thing felt like falling from way up high, even more intense than any roller coaster she'd been on. The chat filled up with people being jealous and salty, saying she was complaining when they didn't even get a chance to play yet. Some others were just amazed at how realistic the graphics looked, like watching an actual movie. After a minute, things cleared up and she could finally see where she was. She took a good look around at this small circular room with white metal walls and ceiling. There were see-through doors at the top and bottom, plus this vertical metal pole running through the middle. One wall had a display screen showing some readings. Main power was normal, hull integrity looked good, environment said ocean of an unknown planet, and the air was oxygen and nitrogen. Seemed like this was the life pod she'd landed in. The design looked pretty cool, like something straight out of the future. The room kept shaking a bit since the whole thing was floating on water. Susu started looking around and checking things out. Chat was going crazy telling her to climb up and see what's outside. She headed up the ladder in the middle of the room and pushed open the hatch at the top. The sunlight hit her hard and she had to squint for a second, once her eyes adjusted. Though, the view completely blew her mind. Just endless blue ocean everywhere she looked. Susu felt like she was stuck out there alone with nothing but this little life pod keeping her above water. The waves were splashing around and she could actually smell the salt in the air. She totally freaked out for a second. All that blue made her dizzy and she almost lost her balance. She dropped down quick and grabbed onto the edges of the pod. Chat was losing it. Everyone kept saying how insane the graphics looked, like Susu actually got teleported to the middle of the ocean or something. The waves, the lighting, that massive sun overhead, everything looked real as hell. People were saying this looked way better than Silent Hill since that game was all dark and cramped. But this one threw players into this huge, bright open world right from the start. The realism was beating out most movie effects at this point. Susu was gripping the pod edges tight, scared she'd fall in. She kept saying she felt like crying because it didn't even feel like a game anymore. Then this huge explosion went off behind her. She spun around and saw this absolutely massive spaceship sitting in the water not too far away. The thing was more like an aircraft carrier, really. It took up like a third of what she could see, mostly underwater, cutting the ocean in half like some giant wall. Fires were raging all over it and explosions kept going off. The ship was clearly wrecked. Susu slapped herself thinking she had to be dreaming or something. Chat went silent for a bit before everyone started commenting again. People were guessing the carrier was like 700 or 800 meters long. Someone figured out it was the Aurora that crashed. Others were asking if future tech really gets that advanced. Susu just stared at the burning ship, barely able to form words. She kept saying scenes like this only happened in dreams. Chat was just as mesmerized watching with her. Then this clear female voice started talking in her ear. The voice said emergency mode was activated and explained how the Aurora crashed for unknown reasons. So now the priority was keeping users alive on this alien planet. Susu looked around confused, asking who was talking. The voice introduced itself as Chang'e, some AI system. Susu had no idea what that meant. Chang'e explained that starting in the 25th century, everyone in the Dragon Kingdom gets a smart bracelet when they turn 15 for daily life stuff. Chang'e was the AI living in that bracelet, and apparently Susu forgot about it. Susu was stunned. The game just kept throwing new stuff at players. First, the insane realistic graphics, and now a whole AI system. She checked her wrist and found this sleek black bracelet wrapped around her arm. The thing was tight against her skin, all black with detailed patterns and this faint glow inside. She kept saying how high-tech it looked. Chat was impressed too. People were hyped that the AI was called Chang'e and used Chinese tech, saying it gave them weird patriotic feelings. Others were praising the developer for setting the story in China and saying, yeah, tech 400 years from now would definitely be at this level. Chang'e spoke up again, saying she detected possible brain damage and was starting a self-exam. The bracelet shot out purple light that scanned across Susu's whole body. Chang'e reported a mild concussion, but said everything else checked out fine. The memory issues were probably just from shock, nothing to worry about. Susu quickly agreed that she hadn't lost her memory. So Susu's sitting there completely lost, about to tell Chang'e she somehow traveled through time or something. Then it hits her. Wait, this is just a game, not actual time travel. But everything looks so damn real she can't even tell what's real anymore. Chang'e jumps in telling her to check the escape pod for anything useful and keep an eye on the status bars in the corner. Susu glances down and spots 4 bars sitting there in the lower right, and that's when it finally clicks that she's actually playing a game. She stops staring at the view outside and starts tearing through the cabin looking for stuff. All she finds is basic gear: a knife, flashlight, backpack, and some diving equipment. That's it. Chang'e suggests heading into the ocean to catch fish for food. Susu freaks out a bit because, even though she knew this was an underwater game, actually having to dive in makes her nervous as hell. The whole thing feels way too real, like she's actually about to jump in the ocean. Plus, there's another problem. She never learned how to swim. Chang'e keeps it cool though, says she'll teach her how to dive and they need to get moving for safety reasons.